I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Do you remember a while ago when it was the number one rock and roll band in all of the land? Yes, not just Canadian, but the greatest rock and roll band ever to grace our ears. And we started our show every day. Every day, we got to start our show with a little bit of Rush. And then management said, it might be a little heavy for 9 o'clock in the morning. I thought, really though? Because it's the greatest rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll bands. But if I am nothing else, I am a company man. So we switched things up just a little bit, but it makes me feel like I'm being just a little bit rebellious. I mean, how could I not play a little bit of Finding My Way from Rush's debut album? To start our show today, as Rush performs at the Junos for the first time in decades. And they showed up there last night. And if it's good enough for the Junos, well, you better believe it is good enough for us here on the show. And so we start with a little bit of Finding My Way. After, of course, we had the Junos last night. Good Monday morning to you. It is the 30th of March. You know what that means. 2 days away from the month of April, 2 days away from April Fool's Day. Be on your very best behavior, okay? Be aware at all times because you don't know what's coming your way on Wednesday. But that's for Wednesday. Let me tell you what's coming your way, not just today, but this week on the show. Our Kitchener Rangers, as you probably know, had themselves a pretty good weekend. They won on Friday night. They won again last night. The Kitchener Rangers, a 2-0 series lead on the Saginaw Spirit. And the series now shifts from Kitchener. We spent our weekend at the Memorial Auditorium together, didn't we? And it goes from there back to Saginaw. So, as of tomorrow, this show will continue, but we will do it from Saginaw. We'll do the remote broadcast from the beautiful city of Saginaw, Michigan. We won't miss a beat here on the show, but I'm going to be doing the job remotely because later today we board that iron lung. We hop on the bus with our buddy Moose at the wheel, and we make our way to Michigan for games 3 and 4 tomorrow and Thursday. So same show. I will just be in a different location. And hey, you know, where the Rangers go, we go here on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. Let's get right to the phones. Andre is anxious to talk this Monday morning. Good morning, Andre.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
That's going to Saginaw. Hey, I'm just calling, Mike, because talking to you last night, thank you very much. for doing the show today and tomorrow on the road. Thank you. You're a gem. But I'm calling because did ever in a Kitchener Ranger time did a period with no shots, Mike? Talk to you later.
Thank you, Andre. I appreciate the call. You're the second person to ask, although the first person to asked me if it had happened before this season. My answer then was no. I'm pretty sure that it has not happened this season. One shot or two shots in a period, I seem to recall the Rangers having held teams to. But I'll tell you what I'll do, just to help you out a little bit here. I will, before the game tomorrow night, dive into my notes and take a closer look. But I know what the Rangers have all season long done an excellent job of, as the head coach likes to say, defending well. They do not allow much in the way of chances for the opposition. So holding the opposition to very few shots is kind of a thing for the Kitchener Rangers this year. But no, I do not believe at any other time this year the Rangers held another team to 0 shots on goal. In the history, 63-year history of the franchise, has that ever happened? I also could not answer that off the top of my head. But you are, of course, engaged in our Kitchener Rangers, and rightly so, because we had ourselves a weekend, a big 6-4 win on Friday night, and then followed up with a 4-0 win yesterday. And can you believe, despite those 10 goals, I have no opportunity today to play a little JP on 570 for our buddy Jack Pridham, or some Eddie Ficetti for Dylan Edwards, because they were not in on the scoring. Unless I missed something along the way, but I don't think that I did. Dylan Edwards did not score a goal this weekend. Jack Pridham did not score a goal this weekend. But your Kitchener Rangers are 2-0 to start the playoffs. Along with that, come on with your coming on. Tell me you did not enjoy this weekend the Toronto Blue Jays. We had the games on all weekend long. In fact, I know on Friday, when we were starting the playoffs and the Blue Jays were opening their season, my beloved had divided loyalties. Her attention was divided from our Kitchener Rangers broadcast and the Blue Jays season opener. And I completely understand that. And I remember looking over at her yesterday as I was prepping for the game, and we had the baseball game on in the background. And I'm like, this is fun, isn't it? Watching the Blue Jays already, like it's March. It's the first series of the season, but there's just something about it, isn't there? The 50th anniversary, of course, going to Game 7 of the World Series last year. But what a weekend for the Toronto Blue Jays. And how about that stat of 50 strikeouts for Toronto Blue Jays pitchers, establishing a new franchise record for an opening weekend series. 50 strikeouts. And of course, they're starting their 50th season. So looking ahead this week on the show and every week throughout the baseball season, you are going to have our good friend Ian Hunter, the one and only Blue Jay Hunter, on the show Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. We'll chat with Ian about Blue Jays baseball. And if you're anything like me, or anything like me and my beloved in the Farwell household, oh, did we have ourselves an enjoyable weekend, just kind of having the boys of summer on in the background and enjoying the Blue Jays get out to that 3-0 start. It almost feels like it's possible again, doesn't it? That we could go all the way back to the World Series. I know, 159 games to go plus playoffs, but it was a great start for the Blue Jays. Preston Paul is with us early this morning, Farwell's Force, member number 45. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mike. 5-0, you got to be liking that on the weekend.
That's right, 2 for the Rangers, 3 for the Blue Jays, buddy.
That was beautiful, I'll tell you.
Listen, I got to ask you a question since you're here.
Yes.
You made a request on All Request Friday.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and we were doing power ballads on the show.
Yes, we did.
And you chose Highway to Hell by ACD. How is that a power ballad, Paul?
I was just getting you back for the disco the week before.
Okay, that's fine. You snuck one past the goalie on that one, pal. I'm going to have to keep a tighter lid on you guys.
Well, a power ballad is in the eyes of the beholder.
Well, I mean, I usually let you play fast and loose with the rules. I'll give you that. But we want power ballads. We want some, Wanted Dead or Alive or some, I Can't Live Without, some Aerosmith. Like we want that stuff. AC/DC. I didn't ask for great guitar riffs or something.
Yeah, with that too. It could be all of that. That's for sure.
Don't want to miss a thing. That's what I was thinking of from Aerosmith. That's a power ballad.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yep.
Anyway.
We had a power battle last night on the Junos. I was shocked to see Rush there. I went, whoa.
How great was that, eh?
That was pretty cool.
Loved it.
That was pretty neat. Yeah. So you have a great day, Mike. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. And on the note, by the way, of All Request Fridays, this coming Friday, in case you lost track, also a holiday. It's Good Friday leading into the long Easter weekend. So we will not have a request show this week. But mark my words, I'm keeping a closer ear on those requests moving forward. Highway to Hell, a power ballad. Come on with your coming on. By the way, our friends at Morty's doing their annual Good Friday fish fry, and they are supporting the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign in so doing. So we all go for fish on Good Friday, don't we? If you don't yet have your plan, may I suggest to you paying a little visit to Mortys.com and placing your order there, because not only are you getting some great fish for Good Friday, but you're helping out Farwell for Hire at the same time. And I appreciate that stuff.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love you.
All right, let's get your 5, okay? The Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. And we'll start at number 1, where Air Canada is saying that Chief Executive Michael Rousseau is going to retire by the end of the third quarter of this year. Rousseau's departure comes after he was criticized earlier this month for a lack of French in video condolence messages following the deadly plane crash in New York that killed 2 Air Canada Express pilots. The 4-minute video posted online included only 2 French words, bonjour and merci. Those are 2 French words, along with chapeau being the only French words that I know, but I'm not the chief executive officer of Air Canada, am I? And I think that Michael Rousseau might just be saying, I'm done with this. You want to criticize me for not speaking French? I am out of here. And isn't that kind of the way it should be? Sandy sent me an email earlier and said, what about our Governor General? How's her French coming along? As she continues, we know how her budgeting's coming along. She likes to spend our money. But how's that French coming along? Governor General Mary Simon. Anyway, Michael Rousseau stepping down. End of the third quarter of this year. Number 2, charges have been laid after police say 2 men and a teenaged boy climbed to the top of a construction crane working on a 32-story building in Kitchener. Happened yesterday afternoon, shortly after 3. Police were called to the crane at King and Ottawa. The trio had reportedly climbed onto the top beam and went into the building through an opening up top. The 2 20-year-olds and a 16-year-old were found about an hour later on the 22nd floor, hiding in a portable toilet. I would have left them there, just for the record. If you want to hide in a portable toilet in a building, that is your punishment, at least for a time. I would have just, okay, police are here, you're surrounded, now stay in the portable toilet, because I'll bet you that smells really, really good. Anyway, when I first heard the story, do you remember that craze some time ago of people climbing cranes kind of for fun? It was this, I don't know what, some internet trend of some kind. Honest to goodness. I'm glad it wasn't that. And maybe I shouldn't have even brought that up, lest it gives somebody the idea. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. If the city of Kitchener creates a bylaw to fight bad faith renovictions, it should have a modest approach with education-focused enforcement. That's what a staff report coming to Kitchener Council says today. And I says, here is a municipality, again, doing the work of the province. We have a landlord and tenant board for a reason, but municipalities seem to want to get involved in this sort of thing. And according to the report coming to Kitchener Council today, a renoviction bylaw, along with the necessary enforcement, would mean a startup cost of $100,000 plus slightly more than $200,000 per year in operating costs. That's a local cost as opposed to a provincial cost, which is where the problem should be resolved. That's my opinion. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. How do you feel about voting from home this October in the municipal election? Municipalities are starting to look at various ideas, and the city of Waterloo is looking at piloting some home voting this October. Council will this afternoon be asked to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw that would allow the change. Kitchener did this last year in hopes of better accommodating those who could not make it to a polling station either due to illness, injury, or disability. Drive-through voting is also being piloted in Kitchener this year. It's a lot of interesting ideas, I suppose, to increase voter turnout. I would like to think that the privilege of casting a ballot would be enough to attract us to a polling station. But hey, let's do the drive-through thing. Why not? And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, filmmaker Avi Lewis has called for unity in the new Democratic Party. He gave a victory speech in Winnipeg yesterday as the new leader of the NDP. Lewis defeated his 4 rivals on the first ballot with nearly 40,000 votes out of almost 71,000 votes cast.
You go to the box, you feel shame.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 30th of March. Your morning wake-up call is coming up. Either you can make it or I will. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I have told you before that I try very hard to not get too caught up in the annual Sunshine List. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is when the Sunshine List first became a thing.
This is the Mike Farwell Show.
That's not supposed to happen. I think we got that fixed. Okay, we got that fixed. One is the reason that the Sunshine List began some decades ago, when the $100,000 threshold was a much more significant financial threshold. And those making that or more were almost extremely well paid at the time. The Sunshine List has not changed or been updated, indexed for inflation. So $100,000 today, as you know, is not the same as $100,000 some 30 years ago when this Sunshine List first began being reported. That said, we also know that a good many of us are not earning $100,000 a year. But I have mixed feelings on it, because in the early days, I was just envious of people making that kind of money. I try not to be that way anymore. If that's what you can earn in your line of work, God bless you. Like, earn what you can earn. Whatever career path you chose, good for you for earning that kind of money. But a couple of things do jump out at me when I consider the Sunshine List this year, not the least of which is that there are more than 2,000 employees within the region of Waterloo who are on the Sunshine List. And as I said a moment ago, $100,000 a year is still, for many of us, a far higher salary than we earn. And it is out of our less than $100,000 a year earnings that we are paying those $100,000 plus per year salaries to other people. More than 2,000 people on the list in the region of Waterloo, just under 700 in Guelph. Some of the numbers that jump out, of course, the highest paid, John Tibbetts, now retired, more than $600,000 with Conestoga College last year. But the big one, and this I wanted to draw to your attention because it is an election year, okay? a municipal election year, when we get the opportunity to elect new councillors, mayors, maybe a regional chair, school board trustees. I emphasize that because I want to point you to our public school board, the WRDSB, which of course is responsible for hiring the director of education. And the now former director of education for the WRDSB was the second highest paid employee for the public school board last year. And he wasn't working for the board. As you know, he was dismissed, relieved of his duties. But Jiwan Chanaka still received a salary of almost $277,000. I have spent some time, and because the board won't share the information due to confidential personnel matters, we don't know exactly the amount. But I have conservatively estimated that the cost of hiring, firing, bungling this whole education director mess has cost us well more than $1 million here locally. And our public school board trustees, the current crop of them, are 100% responsible for this. Again, my estimate, as I said, a conservative one, but we know that the director of education at the public board earns upwards of $300,000 a year. Jiwan Chanaka was there for almost 3 years. Do the math. You knew that when he was relieved of his duties, there was some sort of severance, or the salary just continues. There's another $277,000 last year. Easily more than $1 million. But how about a guy that didn't work for the board last year, still collecting $277,000 of our tax dollars? Our public school board took that money from us, gave it to him, and I have no idea. I have no idea what was accomplished under that man's tenure here. But the current board of trustees fully, and I do mean fully, responsible for his hiring, his firing, and all of that money that it has cost us. Please remember that when you go to the polls in October. Just clean the slate. Let's clean the slate at the public school board, please. I received an email from Patricia to Mike at 570news.com. Says, Mike, I just want to know your opinion on city buses being able to drive down the shoulder of the 401 while we are stuck in traffic. I was stuck on Friday, and the city bus scared the crap out of me, flying by me on the shoulder of the highway. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Well, Patricia, I'll tell you my thoughts. That's kind of, sort of one of the advantages that we want people who take transit to have, right? You get priority access. It's kind of like those priority signals at intersections so that buses or light rail trains can go somewhere that vehicles can't. So the buses that do use the highway are able to use those added lanes or shoulders because they have to stay on a schedule. And the idea being we want to incentivize the use of transit. So if your bus can avoid traffic by using the shoulder or using that bus-only lane, then that's kind of the part of the appeal that's supposed to incentivize us to use transit. So I'm sorry that it scared you like that. I can understand how intimidating that would be or how that would feel if you've got a big bus passing you on the right while you're stuck in traffic. But it's the sort of thing that we allow transit vehicles to do so that they can stay on schedule and, you know, give those of us stuck in traffic an idea. If I was on that bus, I would be avoiding this traffic jam altogether. So it's kind of the way the cookie crumbles when it comes to transit in this community and elsewhere. That's my 2 cents on it anyway. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center. You'll get a whole lot more than 2 cents there. And then we're going to stay in the theme of the upcoming municipal election. We go to the polls here for our local candidates in October. And a current councillor in Wilmot Township has announced his intentions to run for mayor. We'll find out why coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It is something that historically has not happened an awful lot around here. And that is a current city councillor or township councillor launching a mayoral campaign against an incumbent mayor. I don't know if it's just a sign of deference or respect to the person in the mayor's chair, or just biding one's time and waiting for that mayor to decide they are no longer interested in being mayor. But it's not too often that we see a current councillor go up against a current mayor, although maybe that is changing. We saw that in Cambridge, of course, in the last municipal election when Jan Liggett moved from being a ward councillor into the mayor's chair, unseating the incumbent, Catherine McGarry. Most often, though, what we see municipally is, I mean, there are other entrants on the ballot, but it occurs to me anyway that most often we have our mayors not going up against as strong a competition as a councillor might provide when it comes to a mayor's race. Well, that's going to change in Wilmot Township this year. Natasha Salonen, as we all know, is the current mayor. She is coming up on the end of her first term. But Ward 2 councillor in Wilmot, Chris Wilkinson, announced last week that he intends on launching a mayoral campaign. And Chris Wilkinson joins the show this morning. As always, Chris, thanks very much for making time for us on the show today.
Hey, my pleasure, Mike. Good morning, and appreciate you having me on.
The big question, of course, has to be, why have you decided to throw your hat into the ring for mayor of Wilmot Township?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And to be honest, I've spent some time on council now for the last term, and seeing how decisions are made and understanding where things are breaking down. I don't think residents are getting the level of clarity or value that they deserve. And, you know, this isn't really about politics per se. It's more about how we fix things and how we operate moving forward so we can help keep those costs under control and really focus on, you know, what I am planning on presenting, which is accountability, transparency, and fiscal management.
You mentioned transparency in the announcement you made, letting folks know that you were intending to run for mayor this October. Where do you feel that clarity, to use the word you used a moment ago, or transparency is lacking right now in the township?
Yeah, good question. So I think, you know, good governance isn't necessarily complicated. It's show the numbers, explain the decisions, stand behind them. And I know that we can do better, and that's something that I know myself and a couple other colleagues have pushed for. The public deserves transparency and accountability, and that comes with showing the numbers and the analysis behind all the decisions that we make. And I get the feeling, and I know how I feel, it's that decisions are being made without enough detail or input. So I want to make sure that comes to the forefront.
Fiscal responsibility, financial management seems to be a bit of a theme here, and we're not all that far removed, Chris, from the budget proposal of a tax increase greater than 50% a couple of budget cycles ago in Wilmot. Was that maybe the wake-up call, the moment that the light bulb went off for you and thought, boy, we really need to make some changes here?
Well, that's certainly one. And I think, you know, we at the end of the day, I mean, my philosophy has always been, let's keep it simple. Let's get back to basics. You know, taxpayers, we can't keep going back to them every year without showing exactly where the money's going and, you know, providing greater clarity and greater discipline. And I know that I've pushed for more detailed reporting, and I'm going to continue to do that. And ultimately, we need to find a way that we can diversify our tax base. You know, and one of the ways we do that is by adding in some business growth and some industrial growth. You know, we've got employment lands that we've had ready for years, and we need to bring some businesses into there to really shore up the bottom line for us. Because, again, we cannot keep going back to the general tax base. They are not an endless source of funds, sadly.
As somebody who has been on council for a term now, what changes, Chris, if you change that seat from being the representative for Ward 2 to being the mayor of the township? How does that help you further your goals for the township?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately, what people can expect and what I'll bring to the table is clear numbers, accountable decisions, and respect for taxpayers. That's essentially my core principles and how I'm approaching this. There will be nonstop communication and the ability to see into what's going on at the township day to day and better access to the mayor at the end of the day. And I'm going to make myself extremely available and be out there and present with the public, because ultimately at the end of the day, the citizens and the taxpayer are the boss. They're the shareholders of our organization, and I'm looking to lead that organization on their behalf.
When there is a municipal election, as there is this year in October, the opportunity to declare kind of opens up in May when papers can be filed, et cetera, more formally. Why make the announcement now, about a month before that official period begins?
Yeah, good question. I think, this isn't really a campaign launch per se. You're absolutely right. May 1st is the day that things open up. But for me, this is the start of listening. And I wanted time to hear from residents, and I wanted time to build something that reflects what they actually want. So if people have concerns or ideas, I want to hear them. You feel free to reach out, send me a message, come talk to me. And, if anything, it gives me time to listen and really get it right. So that's why I made the announcement on my personal website, and wanting to let people know that come May 1st, this is where you're going to see my name.
The public life is not the easiest life, as you would know from spending a term as councillor. What kinds of factors go into a decision like this, from family to personal life, business life, your professional career, et cetera? There's got to be a lot that you have to consider before making a decision like this.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't lost to me. I'm very fortunate to have a supportive wife and a supportive family, and even my children are very supportive. So I was happy to see the support from everyone on that side of things. And, going out and chatting with some of my key contacts and key supporters throughout the community, we really sat down and had a conversation and determined that this was the right time. And I think my track record on council speaks for itself, and it will be a change, and we can manage it. And I've got the support I need to make this happen.
You mentioned earlier, Chris, those employment lands that have been ready for years and not yet been put to full use. Where do you see, what is your vision for Wilmot Township? What might be unrealized today, or where it has the opportunity to grow?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And to be honest, I don't necessarily know that I have all the answers to that. But what I think we need to do right now, and what I'm going to strive to do, is I want to surround myself with the people that know how to make these things happen. I may not know everything about everything, but ultimately I know how to surround myself with people that know how to get things done and help facilitate those conversations and decisions, and to sort of provide some insight into the vision or where I see things going. What I see happening in those areas is bringing in multiple small, medium-sized businesses from different industries so that we've got a strong, diversified core. And again, that will really come down to us being able to attract the right kind of businesses to that area. It's a tough environment, a tough market right now, both federally across Canada and provincially. The economy in general is in a tough spot, but I think there's a lot of creative ways that we can help foster some of that investment and focus on bringing in those right businesses. So can't answer that directly right now, but I think overall we've got a good idea of what we need to do and how we can get there, and that comes with making a favorable investment environment.
something we don't often see in municipal politics here in this region is two people who are currently elected vying for that same seat as mayor. Obviously, right now, Natasha Salonen is the mayor of Wilmot. She's finishing up her first term. She hasn't made any declaration yet as to her intentions for a second term or not, but how much does having an incumbent in the chair factor into your decision to make this announcement?
Well, I don't necessarily think it factors in all that much. I mean, personally, again, I know where I'm at and where I'd like to go with this, and I respect the work that's been done. This isn't about individuals, but really, truly, I'm approaching this as an opportunity to improve the system and improve how decisions are made. And really, at the end of the day, it's about having better transparency, better value for taxpayers, and really more accountability in the decision-making process. And I feel that my approach will bring that forward.
Chris, we've always appreciated the time you've given us on the show. We look forward to speaking again as the municipal election approaches. But thank you once again for making time for our show this morning.
Hey, my pleasure, Mike. I really appreciate having me on. And again, I want to reiterate that message is that please, folks, if you have ideas and you want to chat, reach out, send me a message, come talk to me. I welcome it on all levels.
Thanks again. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much. You too.
Chris Wilkinson, Ward 2 councillor in Wilmot Township, and has aspirations to be the mayor. Just remember, unlike other situations whereby a municipal councillor may take a leave in order to pursue a higher level of office, and we've seen that quite a bit recently, haven't we? Either school board trustees or a municipal councillor saying, hey, I want to try to be an MPP or an MP, and they take a leave from their job, and if they are unsuccessful in becoming an MPP or an MP, they just go right back to their municipal council seat. In this particular case, naturally, if you decide that you are going to run for mayor, nobody holds the Ward 2 seat for you. So it's mayor or bust for Chris Wilkinson as far as his time on council is concerned, as he gives up his seat on Ward 2 and says, I'm going to focus on running for mayor. As we talked about, there is an incumbent mayor right now. Natasha Salonen has not indicated what her intentions are in the upcoming election, but this is a level of drama, if you will, that we don't often see in municipal politics. As I said before this conversation with Chris, we did see it in Cambridge in 2022 when Councillor Jan Liggett decided to run against incumbent Mayor Catherine McGarry, and Councillor Liggett became Mayor Liggett as she defeated Catherine McGarry in the mayoral race. But it's not too often. I'm trying to think of another time where we had a sitting councillor. I mean, I guess maybe Dan Glenn Graham did that from Kitchener many years ago, one term in, and decided to try to run against, I think it was against Barry Verbanovic. Anyway, it's not something we see a lot of. And if you look at Toronto, for example, oftentimes you will see existing councillors take their shot at the mayor's chair. That's already happening this time around, as Brad Bradford is going to make a run against Olivia Chow in Toronto. I welcome people with council experience looking to assume a greater role on that council by making a run for mayor. And let's have viable candidates seeking the job. Give us options when it comes to our votes instead of the perennial also rans. And I mean, no disrespect to the late Frank Kulsar, but he put his name up against Carl Zare every single election when Carl Zare was the mayor of Kitchener. And I know that Frank knew he never stood a chance against the powerhouse municipal leader like Carl Zare, but the name was always there on the ballot. When you have somebody who is an incumbent councillor deciding they want to take a shot at the mayor's chair, at least you've got some options that are known commodities instead of the known incumbent and the unknown challenger. So, as I said, I welcome it. I wonder what you think of a declaration here about a month before you officially have to, and what it means for the race in Wilmot Township. If it's one thing we can say about Wilmot, it's that there's been some significant change, right? When I first started covering politics around here, Wayne Roth is one of the ones I remember early on, and then Les Armstrong was there what felt like forever. And then we had that complete changeover of council where it was a fully elected female council along with Mayor Les Armstrong. And then after that, the entire council got wiped right out, and we've got the council that we have today. So in consecutive terms in Wilmot Township, we have had significant turnover when it comes to the makeup of the council. Very interesting dynamic at play municipally in Wilmot. Do you welcome a competitive mayor's race? Any other mayor that you would like to see a councillor step up and take a run against? We are into a municipal election year. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Ultimately, to find a way that we can diversify our tax. One of the ways we do that is by adding in some business growth and some industrial growth. We've got employment land that we've had ready for years, and we need to bring business in there to really shore up the bottom line for us. Because, again, we cannot keep going back to the general tax base. They are not an endless source of funds, sadly.
It sounds like a welcome approach. After back-to-back double-digit, well, no, they didn't go quite double-digit this time in Wilmot, did they? But 2 years ago, or 2 budget cycles ago, started at greater than 50%, ultimately settled just under 20, as I recall. And then this past year, I believe the number came in at 9% and change. That is Ward 2 councillor from Wilmot, Chris Wilkinson, who has announced his intention to run for mayor in the upcoming municipal election in Wilmot Township. And in fairness, one of the things that we learned, and we've heard this, quite frankly, across the board, Woolwich is talking about the same challenges, and that is with these steep tax increases that townships are dealing with and residents are being asked to pay. It's a case of having kicked the can down the road from previous councils. So I don't know how much can change in a hurry when it comes to Wilmot Township, but I certainly appreciate the perspective that Chris Wilkinson is trying to bring to the conversation. I also hope that having a legitimate race for the mayor's seat in Wilmot Township, and that's assuming, and I have no idea, but that's assuming that Natasha Salonen runs again. Known commodity versus known commodity. I hope that generates some interest and increases turnout. I was mentioning today during the Farwell Show 5 some of the new tactics that our municipalities are considering employing in an effort to accommodate more voters, including voting from home or a drive-through voting option. This is all well and good, but I wish we didn't have to resort to essentially gimmicks to get people to get more engaged in their local politics. This is the level of government that touches your life most directly every single day. You go about your life in this community, and something that the municipal government is responsible for touches that life. And the fact that so few of us turn out for municipal elections, quite frankly, it chafes my chaps. So I hope that if there are compelling races, it encourages more of us to get involved and get out there and cast a ballot in the upcoming municipal election. Mark it down. Put it in your calendar. October the 26th of this year, we will have a municipal election. We're going to get you an update from the 570 News Center. And then we were having a conversation about 10 days ago or so with the father of a young boy, a local hockey player, 9 years old, who's been diagnosed with a brain tumor. He just finished, in fact, his first round of radiation treatment for the tumor. But when his dad was telling us the story, something he said about how the tumor was discovered really caught our attention. And the University of Waterloo's School of Optometry played a critical role in that. We'll tell you the story and find out more coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
It was then being looked at as post-concussion syndrome. It wasn't until we took him to the University of Waterloo Optometry Center, where the students actually took a look at his eyes and took a picture behind his eyes, that they noticed that there was swelling on the back of his optical nerves. They, wanted us to get a second opinion, sent us down to Hamilton. There, that was confirmed. Immediately, they forwarded us on to McMaster Children's Hospital. There was a follow-up CT scan, and at that point is when they found that he had several tumors on his brain.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is Cody Yoshi, father of 9-year-old Harrison, a young local hockey player who has been diagnosed with those brain tumors. And as I mentioned before that update in the 570 News Center, he has just completed, Harrison has, his first round of radiation. But when his dad, Cody, was with us in studio about 10 days ago, and he told us that story about the trip to the University of Waterloo Optometry Clinic and how the tests done there had led to the discovery of the tumor, it certainly caught our attention. It caught our attention to the point that we thought we needed to explore this a little bit further. So we are joined this morning by Lisa Christian, who's an associate clinical professor and the associate director of clinical programs at the UW's School of Optometry and Vision. Lisa, good morning. Lisa, are you with us? Hello, Lisa. We are having a heck of a time making this connection by the sounds of things. You know, the big problem that we're having today, and I'm going to ask Jen to make a call right away to get Lisa back on the phone. I think we should call out to her instead of having her try to call in to us. But we are having a heck of a time with our phone lines here at the radio station. We have been having a heck of a time with the phone lines for a number of days now, but unfortunately, we can't seem to get them fixed, and it's awfully difficult to conduct a talk show when you don't have phone lines that you can use to talk to your guests. Jen, can you just let me know, is this Lisa on line 4 now? Lisa, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now just fine. I'm so sorry for the problem.
That's okay. Technology.
This technology, if we don't have this stuff solved by now, my goodness gracious. But I digress. Thank you so much for the time. I played the clip. I don't know if you got to hear it with all the phone trouble, but of Cody Yoshi explaining that it was a trip to the optometry clinic at the University of Waterloo that led to the discovery of his young son's brain tumors, which caught our attention and quite frankly blows my mind. So maybe in a general way, Lisa, if we could start with the role that optometry plays in our overall healthcare system, because clearly there are things that we can learn through this that we might not otherwise have learned.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think most times when we're thinking going to the optometrist, it's, I'm having trouble seeing, right? So I have trouble seeing, far away, I may need glasses, and that sort of is where it ends there. But, as we can see in this case, the optometrist does a lot more. So not only do we check vision, we check to see how well the eyes work together, but we also look at the back of the eye. In the back of the eye, we check intracranial or intraocular pressure. We make sure that the blood vessels are good. We look for any holes or tears in the retina, and a lot of those things can lead to systemic problems, which is what happened in this case.
Could you walk us through what a typical eye exam or test might look like that could have led to this discovery?
So the first thing that we do is take a look at your vision, making sure your eyes work together, taking a look at your pupils. But then what we also do is, we check the pressure in your eyes. So this is where sometimes there may be a puff of air, or we put some dye in your eye and we check the pressure in your eye. We dilate your eye. So this is where your pupils become really big so that we can look at the back of the eye. And then we take a look at the optic nerve. We take a look at the fovea and your retina to make sure everything there is looking nice and healthy.
How much collaboration is there between an optometrist and other specialists within our healthcare system?
There's a lot of collaboration. So interprofessional collaboration, with all health professions, we need to talk to each other. So certainly when we see that, we may correspond with your family doctor. We may send you to the hospital for additional testing. Sometimes we have, in this case, a family doctor that referred the patient to us to take a look because of the post-concussion syndrome. So we talk a lot outside of even health professions, In cases of children, we talk to teachers, we talk to, various OTPTs if you're undergoing other treatments, speech language. So there's a lot of connection between the eyes and other parts of our body.
I'm very curious about that because you mentioned at the outset that a lot of us would come to, an optometrist if we're having trouble seeing. But obviously there are so many other things that we could learn. What else can we learn through an eye exam?
We diagnose many things systemically, or at least we look to see, and if there are concerns, we refer out to the professionals for additional testing. So, we take a look. Diabetes can be found in the back of the eye. High blood pressure can be found in the eye. So there's many, post-concussion is a big one where there's so many different visual symptoms that could be part of the post-concussion syndrome. And so we take a look at all these different facets of a person's vision, how well their eyes are moving together, the back of the eye, to make sure everything else in the body is working well.
Is there a best practice, Lisa, for the frequency with which we should have an eye examination?
I'm so glad you asked that. Most of the time, people don't think of going to the optometrist until they can't see well. But, like with everything else, we want annual eye exams, especially for kids. So for kids, we recommend starting at 6 months of age and then coming in every year to make sure that the eyes are developing well, everything's working well. When we're adults, every 2 years, if everything's okay. But anytime you do have any sort of problems, come on in. We definitely want to take a look at that back of the eye, take a look at the pressure to make sure that there's no other reasons for the symptoms you may be experiencing.
When Cody told us about the trip to the UW School of Optometry and how this brain tumor was discovered, he mentioned students. Can you share with us? I mean, it's not all students at the UW School of Optometry, but is this training ground plus? Can you explain to us what the school itself does?
Yeah, so the school it's a 4-year program after you've done your undergraduate. So most of our students have done 3 or 4 years of undergraduate before they come into the program. Year 1 and 2 is more learning how to become an optometrist, a lot of courses, lab, and then starting in year 3 is when our students see patients. And so we have an optometry clinic that is open to the public. Our 3rd and 4th year students see patients alongside our optometrists or registered clinicians. And so they see patients, they'll present to the optometrist, and the optometrist will come in and verify their findings. But it's a great way for our students to get that hands-on clinical experience before they get out in practice.
I get the feeling, Lisa, that this is an underappreciated aspect of the role optometry plays in our overall well-being, because I never would have thought until I heard from Cody Yoshi that anything beyond helping me find a new prescription for my glasses could be accomplished at an optometry clinic.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm so glad this is being brought. Optometry is much more than just vision, as I keep mentioning. And as you said, sometimes it's cases like this where, we remind ourselves that we need to go and make sure that everything, not only our vision, but our eye health is doing well. And that's what the optometrist does. We are primary eye care. physicians, so not only vision, but everything. As I mentioned, we diagnose many things, or we look to see, and if there's something that doesn't look right, we refer to our healthcare colleagues to take additional looks. So, yeah, anytime you do have any symptoms, come on in. But even when you don't, every year, every 2 years, go on in to see your optometrist to make sure that your eye health is doing well.
It's a great reminder for all of us, and what a fantastic resource we have there at the University of Waterloo. Lisa, thank you very much for making time for our show this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Lisa Christian is a clinical professor and the Associate Director of Clinical Education at the School of Optometry and Vision Science at the University of Waterloo. Joins us to talk about that remarkable story. And it just came up in conversation with Cody Yoshi, father of Harrison. And I'm sure you've heard Harrison Yoshi's story by now. It has been well publicized through the community. 9-year-old boy, everything was fine until it wasn't, right? His dad, who was also his hockey coach, saw him fall down at practice, didn't think anything of it, but then symptoms got worse. There was an instability. There was, this must be post-concussion syndrome, something like that. And it wasn't until, and when Cody told that part of the story, it caught our attention. We thought we have to explore this a little bit further. It wasn't until he went to the University of Waterloo School of Optometry for that eye exam that they noticed the pressure in behind the eyes. That led to the referral to McMaster and ultimately the diagnosis of the brain tumors. Imagine if that eye exam had not been done, or perhaps it had not been done by anyone as skilled as those folks at the University of Waterloo School of Optometry. What a terrific find. I feel so good about our future with those students in charge of such tests, because that is a remarkable story, and I'm glad we could do a bit of a deeper dive into it here today. Let's go to the phones, because Andre is with us, and if you don't know, Andre has shared with us before that he is visually impaired, so he probably knows a thing or two about this. Hi, Andre.
Hi, Mike. I've been with the low vision clinic since 2006, and again, these are all the jewelries that we have in the community, ears, whatever, ear, nose, and throat, and all the rest. But the thing is, I've been with them since 2006, and still going till this day, every week, especially with psychiatrist counseling and the side effects, and we're working together so I can be balanced. Now I'm 58, and, I always think about myself since the injury, because a lot of symptoms came out after. And you know what, Mike, when you say, and Lisa said, get your eyes checked every year, an adult every 2 years, and that's what I'm saying about your ears, because when stuff happens, it's easier to backtrack. So if you can, just like cancer, breast cancer, if you can detect it before, then you have a chance of a better life, right? So thank you very much, Mike, for this, and hopefully we can talk more about it.
Andre, thanks for calling in and sharing part of your story with us. Again, it's just one of those things that I never would have thought of. I never would have thought of until Cody Yoshi mentioned it in talking about his son's diagnosis. And it was a trip to the University of Waterloo School of Optometry, where the pressure behind the eyes was discovered, and ultimately those tumors were diagnosed. What a resource we have right here in our community. And thanks to Dr. Lisa Christian's participation in the show this morning, we are reminded of the role that optometry plays in the overall healthcare system. It's not just because you're having a vision problem. There are other reasons to see an optometrist. And if you're not doing it annually or biannually at best, you might be missing some of these incredible diagnoses that could help down the road. As I mentioned at last check with Harrison, our 9-year-old survivor here, just finished his first round of radiation. According to Dad, he's been handling it like a champ, and he would not have even gotten into those radiation treatments had it not been for the eye exam at the University of Waterloo's School of Optometry. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it is that time of the show where I like to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. Sometimes we get frustrated and think we are surrounded by them, but no, that's not the case. I just hope in this case the Rolling Stones, yes, the rock band, does not get jackwagonry about this seniors baking class. You'll understand why coming up. Nobody needs a cease and desist here, okay, Mick Jagger? Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about various challenges in our community and beyond. Sometimes, take, for example, our Monday tradition of rant or rave. We will rant about the things that bother us, and that's a good thing, right? If we get it off our chest and we get it onto the air, there's no question that it is somewhat therapeutic. But you might start to think, if you hear enough ranting about this little thing or that little thing, that there's just tons and tons to rant about. Nothing but ranting, right? And when we have people in our lives that cause us to rant, we refer to them on this show as jackwagons. We even have a special place that we are permitted to place them. We can put them in jackwagon jail. There is no passing go. There is no collecting 200. You can lock them up and throw away the key. You go to jackwagon jail, you stay there. You go to box, you feel shame. You go to jackwagon jail, you stay there. But not everybody is a jackwagon, and we like to take a moment around this time every day on the show to remind you of that very thing. And so in this morning's case, I point you to a group of seniors in the Chicago area who may not have moves like Jagger anymore, but they still get their satisfaction in the kitchen every week. And no, stop it. This is not the kind of satisfaction that Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones were singing about. This is a group of seniors, some into their 90s, that are members of the Chicago area cooking club called the Rolling Scones. Again, no cease and desist, Mick Jagger and company. These are the Rolling Scones. And it's a group of seniors that get together on a weekly basis to bake some scones, to do whatever else they need to do or want to do in the kitchen. There are 8 members of this group who not only get together, cook for themselves, again, cook for others, but get together and socialize, because we know how important it is, especially in our later years, to combat that loneliness, stick together, and connect with one another in real life. I can't imagine these octo and septuagenarians actually getting into a place where they're texting one another all the time. So the Rolling Scones get together on a weekly basis and they prepare meals for their retirement community as well as themselves, and they get the socialization along with it. And as they are just wrapping up Nutrition Month, which is this month of March, they've been making more dishes that include superfoods like antioxidant-rich berries and other beneficial fruits and vegetables. Just another thing that the Rolling Scones can learn as they continue working together on a weekly basis, connecting with one another in real life, and feeding their retirement community. You see, not everybody is a jackwagon. Not even every senior. I would like to think that amongst the seniors who are among us, we'll find fewer and fewer jackwagons. But there's your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon. I'm a little suspicious of one of my coworkers connected to this. I like to think that he is not a jackwagon on the best of days, but he left a little box open and said, "Free for your enjoyment," and signed the note in our kitchen. And it's a box of protein bars. And I can't help but wonder, because I've had my share of protein bars in my life, and usually I eat a protein bar just for the sake of the protein bar. It's kind of quick. It's on the go. When I was exercising more, they were pretty handy. but I never really loved the flavor. I never found one that I actually liked. Even when people would say this is the best protein bar you've ever had, there was always something about protein bars for me. So I'm just wondering, my coworker that left the box of protein bars for all of us to enjoy, is he just trying to offload some protein bars that he doesn't actually like and or want onto the rest of us? Is he actually a jackwagon in disguise? I'm going to go on the theory that he is not a jackwagon, because as we remind you every day around this time on the show, not everybody is a jackwagon. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then a story that will continue to uplift because the Essentials Fund is back for another year, and this is a really special Made in Waterloo Region fund that's doing great things. We'll tell you all about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, I love the chance to follow up our previous segment where we remind you that not everybody around you is a jackwagon. They're really not. With something that reminds you of that yet again, especially right here in the region of Waterloo, because it's kind of a Made in Waterloo Region solution to a problem when it comes to charities and their ability to distribute funds. We have what's called the Essentials Fund here in the region, and it's fired up for another year. The co-founder of the fund, Jane Arnold, joins me in studio. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having us again.
An absolute pleasure. Mike Pereira is here as well, steering committee member with the Essentials Fund, and I might add, just an all-around good guy. If you know Mikey, you know he's a good guy. Good to see you, Mike. Good morning.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you too, man.
It's great to see you, as always. Jane, let me start with you, please, as the co-founder. The Essentials Fund, how and why did it get started?
So we started it March 2022, and it was after seeing on social media or in charity newsletters a request for essential items, toothbrushes, toothpaste, cleaning supplies, weather-appropriate clothing. And we thought there just has to be a better way to help our vital charity organizations, our community organizations that do such important work in the community. So we started talking, and we came up with the idea of creating the Essentials Fund. With much help from the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, Lynn Short. Shout out to Lynn, because she's so incredibly community-minded and helpful. And so we started March 2022, and we had no idea what the community response would be like. And here we are going into our fifth fundraising and granting campaign this year. And what we have learned is that our community is very generous. We are a group of community volunteers that come together, and we ask our networks and we ask the community to donate. Then we have an application process, and we provide an unrestricted grant to the charities.
That's the key here, though, isn't it, Jane? The fact that the grant is unrestricted, allowing the charities to use these funds for whatever that essential need happens to be.
100%. Many charities receive grants for their programming. And so this is completely unrestricted, so it allows them to buy what they need when they need it, because many also have storage issues. And so when they do receive a lot of one product, they have difficulty storing that. So this allows them to really look at what they need, go out and get it, and if there's specific needs, then it allows them to go and purchase that item as well.
So, Mike, how did you end up as a member of this steering committee for the Essentials Fund?
Yeah, so, through the Research and Technology Park, we've had a fund at the Community Foundation for a long time, so we've ended up working pretty closely with the charitable sector, and so that's how I got to know folks at the Community Foundation, folks at Social Venture Partners and other places, and through Rose Greensides, who at the time was at Social Venture Partners, I had gotten to know Jane. And so when the fund started spinning up, Jane approached me and asked if, I'd be interested in getting involved on the steering committee, and couldn't couldn't say no to that. It's a great opportunity to get more connected to the community and try to find some solutions at a grassroots level to some problems that we're facing.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite parts about it, because grassroots really is what this is all about. So as the fund fills up on an annual basis, Mike, how do you as a committee determine where those funds get distributed?
Sure. I mean, we're always really trying to support as many groups as possible. So there's an application process that'll open June 1st this year.
June 1st, yeah.
For charities, it's a really simple application. We didn't want to have people having to hire someone to fill out a 25-page application explaining why they need the funds. It's a really short application that charities can fill out in a matter of minutes, basically just explaining what do they plan to do with the funding. And then we have a review committee that evaluates, and we try to find as many applications as we can say yes to as we can. I think last year we did 18.
18. And
grants?
We had 18 applications, and we provided 18 grants.
Are they a set amount of money, those grants?
We grant between $2,500 and $4,000. And sort of depending on size and need, but we really have the sort of our criteria is very open, and so we welcome applications from nonprofits.
Right. So as a steering committee, Mike, how often are you getting together, and what does that work look like?
The work for us has been really we don't meet. We have a pretty informal organization. We don't have a lot of big formal meetings and a lot of overhead infrastructure. It's a lot of just emails, Zoom calls, quick back and forth. I think we've established a pretty repeatable process at this point where we try not to overcomplicate it. It's pretty straightforward. Raise the money as best we can, distribute the money as quickly as we can through a really simple mechanism. And I think it's worked really well for us. We've gotten, these sort of micro grants of several $1,000s into the hands of charities really efficiently and quickly. Nobody's had to spend a ton of time or money to make this happen. And those charities have found it really valuable to be able to go and buy anything from, diapers to sanitary products to bus tickets, interestingly, is one that comes up quite often for us. So getting the people that they serve to and from job interviews, appointments, connecting them to the community.
Yeah, I love the way that works. And again, the fact that this is unrestricted. So this would be year number 5, Jane, starting in March of 2022. Over the years, what's it been like managing this fund and watching the money go into the community like this?
It has been so interesting because when we started, we really had no idea what the response was going to be like. And what we saw is our community is very generous, as you know, and has stepped up. And every year we go into it and people say, how much do you want to raise? And we say, we want to raise as much as we can. And whatever we raise, after administrative fees, we grant it out. So it comes in and it goes out. And I think what we have seen certainly last year, and we're expecting again this year, is there is great need in the community. We all know when we go to the store to buy things, everything keeps going up. And so when you think about essential items and how important they are for long-term health, if you don't have a toothbrush or you don't have toothpaste or soap, or you need to get to a doctor's appointment and you don't have bus fare, it's either bus fare or food. We just think that it's really important that folks are supported. Our most vulnerable community members and our community partners are doing that. So we are so happy to be able to provide this small grant to them.
This is a flow-through fund,
yes,
as we would call it, right? So there's nothing that sits there permanently.
No.
Every year what comes in gets redistributed.
Yes.
How much over the first 4 years, do you know?
We have granted over $180,000 to 30-plus organizations, local community organizations, many receiving the grant all 4 years. And so what they tell us is that they are so appreciative, even though it's small, because they just don't get this kind of money. And on our application, even though it's unrestricted, we ask them, and we have seen the needs increase over the years. You know, that everybody is making the point to us that every little bit counts and that they really are appreciative of it.
And if the same organization is getting the money year over year, that's almost some sustainable, stable funding for them.
Yes.
Of that amount.
Yes.
So the fund is open again for another year, Mike. The important thing is, how do we fill it up? What can we do?
Well, I mean, for us, it's really about going to the website and making donations, reaching out to the people who are connected to the fund, and we can certainly help make that happen. So it's theessentialsfunds.ca is the website, and people can go and look that up. Make a donation there, and then recommend it to the charities. I mean, as Jane said, it's not just about getting donations in the door, but getting donations out the door. So for us, being more mindful of who's out there looking for grants. So even if you're not in a position to make a donation, letting a charity that you know or putting it on their radar that this is something that they can apply to is also really, really helpful. And if people don't want to go through us, they can also donate to the charities directly themselves too.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that.
100%.
Yeah. It probably goes without saying the donations are tax deductible.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so it's theessentialsfund.ca. That's where we can go. The fund is open now. We're going to fill it up and get those grants out starting in June again. Jane, Mike, thanks for, first and foremost, the work that you've done on this. I know it's not just the two of you. There's an entire team here. But love the grassroots nature of this, and I want to see it get filled right back up again this year. So keep up the good work.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Mike, for having us on.
Mike Pereira and Jane Arnold joining us. The Essentials Fund is open again, theessentialsfund.ca. Check it out. Let's fill it back up and get that unrestricted funding into the hands of organizations that need it. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. I don't know about you, but I don't pay a lot of attention to awards shows. I don't know what it is. I used to have the Oscars as appointment tuning every year. I'd go to my buddy's Oscar party. It was always a great time. And after a while, I don't know. I felt like it was just a little bit too much. Like, don't we already fawn over you and admire you because you've made the movie, we pay money to go see your movies, or we buy your music, or whatever that thing happens to be. I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit much. But I got to say, the morning after, especially the morning after the Junos celebrating all things Canadian music, I feel like, kind of patriotic today. I think it was a great night to celebrate what is, by the way, a really big industry for this country. If you think about it, when it comes to the English-speaking world or music that is made by English-speaking artists, you've got the United States, you've got the UK, and then you've got us here in Canada. Like we create a lot of the world's music. And love him or lump him, I think Prime Minister Mark Carney had a pretty successful appearance at the Junos last night in Hamilton, and Joni Mitchell, to whom Prime Minister Carney presented the Lifetime Achievement Award, certainly had nice things to say about our Prime Minister, especially because she now makes her home in the United States. But you might have heard little bits of this during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas. Here is the longer form of Prime Minister Carney's introduction to Joni Mitchell and her acceptance of the Lifetime Achievement Award.
On Halloween 1962, at the Louis Riel Coffee House in Saskatoon, a precocious 18-year-old took the stage for the first time. She did more than earn her smoking money. That evening, Joni Mitchell sang the first notes of the iconic, prolific, and fiercely authentic career that we all celebrate this evening. Born Born in Fort Macleod, Alberta, raised in Saskatoon, the songs of this prairie girl brought to life beauty in everyday Canadiana. Geese in chevron flight. A little money riding on the maple leafs. A river to skate away on. Through 19 studio albums, a career spanning more than 6 decades, Joni drew a map of Canada. Oh, Canada. Her hit songs, like River and Big Yellow Taxi, have been covered, not downloaded, covered more than 8,000 times by musicians as varied as Bob Dylan, Sarah McLachlan, Annie Lennox, who all found that universal sense of longing in the specific familiar imagery at the heart of her music. Music Canada has gained from Joni Mitchell living every one of her days. On behalf of all Canadians, it is my great honor to present the Juno Lifetime Achievement Award to one of the greatest artists of all time. Please welcome Joni Mitchell.
Good evening, Hamilton. I haven't been here in many, many years, but I'm so glad to be here tonight with our wonderful Prime Minister. We are so fortunate to have him. I'm living in the States, and you know what's happening there. Some years ago, 10 or 12 years, I forget how long ago, I had an aneurysm, which changed my life oddly for the better. I went into a coma, which helped me to quit smoking, and my house filled up with the most wonderful nurses. I was on the road with men for years and years and years. Now I live with a house full of women, and and I have a fantastic therapist. So my life has changed for the better out of a catastrophe, like a phoenix, who grows a better life. I don't have much else to say except thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
It feels kind of cool, doesn't it? Joni Mitchell, Lifetime Achievement, says our Prime Minister is wonderful. We are so blessed to have Mark Carney as our Prime Minister because Joni Mitchell now lives in the United States. And as you heard her say, you know what's going on there right now. And over and above a pretty nice introduction to Joni Mitchell and his admission that her cover of Both Sides Now is one of his favorites, Mark Carney, I thought, acquitted himself quite nicely when it comes to his knowledge of Canadian music.
Look, I can talk like an economist anytime, and this is, we're the third largest exporter of music in the world. Canada's third largest exporter of music in the world. It's a huge industry, but really at the core of it, it's our stories, it's our emotions, it's our core, and it's our heart at a time when the world really needs more of Canada. So it's important to support it. I mean, from Joni all the way to as I said, Fred's a moment ago, we've got the whole spectrum. So I'm a fan. I'm thrilled. Why is it important for me to be here? Because they let me in. I've got everyone from, I've got Fred's, I got the Beaches, obviously Joni Mitchell, the Hart Nelly Furtado. I mean, it's like the whole range, Drake, Rush, whoever, Canadian, a huge amount. I got to give a plug for Down with Webster. They're not here tonight, I know, but we got huge talent. Art Kells. I mean, I could go on. BB No Money.
BB No Money? I see Prime Minister Carney down with his Canadian music better than I am, but makes me want to go home and catalog all of my Canadian music. Why am I here? He asks in response to the same question, why is he there? Because they let him in. It's kind of cool. I mean, if I were Prime Minister, I'd be thrilled about getting invited to the Junos. Anyway, as much as I tend to shy away from award shows, in listening back to what happened last night, and I was otherwise occupied anyway, Big game for our Kitchener Rangers. Big win for our Kitchener Rangers. I was much more entertained where I was. But listening back this morning, I thought I'd share some of those highlights with you, particularly the celebration of Joni Mitchell, whose music I have always loved. I'm as much as I'm a classic rock, 1970s rock and roll guy, folk music has always held a special place in my heart. Did I just come up with an unintentional theme for another All Request Friday? Maybe I did. Maybe we'll do folk songs one of these days. Not this Friday, though, because this Friday is a holiday. However, Monday is the day that we are on, and you know that means a couple of regular things, including This Week in Music History. That's coming up right after the update from the 570 News Center. That is minutes away. And following that, David Drewe will be here with Drewe's Views. And if some of that wonderful Prime Minister, we are blessed to have him, makes you cringe a little bit, I hate to break it to you, but if you're looking for an alternative, I don't think the federal NDP found one at their leadership convention this weekend. We'll talk with David Drewe about that just after 11:30. Your next hour has now been set up. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Your toes started tapping as soon as Kenny Loggins got started. You knew it right from the first note. I know that you did. And why is it that that song can still to this day not be played at some weddings? We'll get into that as we take a look at This Week in Music History with our good friend and musicologist Brian Allison. Don't forget, Brian operates a Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History, where you can get the full list of weekly stories looking back at This Week in Music History. We welcome Brian to the show. Good morning, Mr. Allison.
Hi, Mike.
Let's go all the way back to 1970. I know that was a very good vintage for you. And Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young this week in 1970 were at number one on the album charts.
It's the best vintage, the year I was born.
Yes, it was. Yes, sir.
Let's go. Yeah, so April 4th, 1970, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young went to number one on the U.S. album chart with their album Deja Vu. So this was the first album that saw Neil Young join Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And it featured 3 U.S. top 40 singles, Teach Your Children, which kind of became CSNNY's signature song, Our House, and the song Woodstock, of course. So, yeah, this was a big, big record in 1970 and beyond, and still today is one of the better-selling vinyl compilations out there. A lot of people have this in their collection. Some cool trivia about it. It was the only studio album credited to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young as a foursome during their classic era, and this was not an easy record to make. It took nearly a year to record the album due to ego clashes within the band. Stephen Stills was a known perfectionist and really wanted everything to sound a particular way and would cut and recut tracks over and over again. And there was also a lot of drug use going on within the band. So this is the early 70s. It was just the way of rock and roll back then. And it was really a fragmented process with each member bringing their own songs to the sessions. Many critics often refer to it as, quote, four solo artists sharing the same space. But you know what? It did very well. The song Our House by Graham Nash, which he brought to the album, even has a Canadian connection. And I love that it was connected with Mark Carney's speech and in introduction of Joni Mitchell at the Junos last night, because that song, Our House, Graham wrote for his girlfriend at the time, Joni Mitchell. And it just captured a peaceful domestic moment that actually happened. They had been down to Laurel Canyon, and Joni had bought a new vase. When they got home, Graham literally said to her, "I'll light a fire and you go put some flowers in the vase you bought." And that became the lyrics to the song, which became a great hit.
I love it. And that suggestion that this album was 4 solo artists sharing the same space. I mean, these were pretty talented musicians in their own right. Forget coming together as CSNY.
Incredible talent. Like each one of them, I mean, you look at their solo careers, you look at the bands that they fronted before and after Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Still going strong today is Neil Young for sure. So, I mean, these guys were just all loaded with talent. And you put 4 talented guys like that with huge egos in the same room, you're going to get some fireworks.
All right, let's look at this week in 1974. In fact, it was on this very day in 1974 that John Denver was on the top of the Billboard Hot 100.
John Denver, yeah. A lot of people who grew up in the 70s like you and I, this is kind of, in our wheelhouse. Real early musical memories for me in particular with John Denver. So, yeah, it was March 30th, 1974 that John Denver topped the Billboard 100 for the first time with his song Sunshine on My Shoulders. And it was his first of 4 U.S. #1 hit songs. And he would have a spectacular career. He would go on to be one of the most popular and beloved artists of the 1970s. Sold 33 million records worldwide, won a Grammy in 1975 for his hit song Annie Song, which was written for his wife, soon to become ex-wife, unfortunately. But yeah, John had a fantastic career. His real name, I think he probably made a great call in adopting a stage name, was Henry John Duschendorf Jr., which doesn't really have the same appeal and maybe doesn't look as great on a marquee as John Denver. And he chose the name Denver after his deep love for Colorado, which he made his home.
You make a great point when you talk about John Denver's influence on the 1970s and how big he was. I got to be honest, though, never did it for me, Brian. It was never my cup of tea.
I remember it just because it was some of the first music that I remember my parents playing.
Sure.
John Denver and the Carpenters, James Taylor, all that early sort of folk music in the early 70s was kind of the first music that entered my ears and sort of shaped my love for that kind of music to this day. I mean, John was terrific. He did a lot of other things besides music, too. Don't forget he did some acting along the way. He was a strong advocate for lots of causes as well. So, yeah, it was sad that we lost him years later in that tragic plane crash, but he certainly was doing very well in the 1970s.
Now, much more in my wheelhouse in the later 1970s and remains there to this day. And quite frankly, in my humble estimation, one of the best albums ever this week in 1977, Fleetwood Mac's Rumours.
Well, it is, without a doubt, one of the best albums that's ever been made. Yeah, in 1977 on April 2nd, this is when Rumours topped the Billboard 200. This was their 11th studio album, and it was just a monster of a hit. There was so many top 10 hits, Go Your Own Way, Don't Stop, You Make Love and Fun, and they hit #1 with the song Dreams, surprisingly the only song that actually went to #1. It would, win some Grammy Awards, and it was clearly the most successful release that Fleetwood Mac ever had, selling 40 million copies worldwide. I don't know that it's unknown trivia. A lot of people are aware, but this album was recorded under extreme emotional chaos and fueled by a ton of drugs. So both couples in the band, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, and Christine and John McVie, were literally splitting up as the album was being recorded. And Mick Fleetwood, the 5th member, he was in the midst of a very, very messy divorce. So there's a lot of stuff going on in their personal lives. All 5 members admitted to using copious amounts of cocaine during the long recording sessions, which contributed to that atmosphere, that tense atmosphere. And all of them said after the fact that they were quite surprised that Rumours did as well as it did. They thought that it was a good album, but had no idea it was going to go on to sell 40 million copies. But it did. And today, again, you talk about albums that still sell very well, and Rumours is consistently one of them.
It certainly is, and with good reason, as you mentioned. One of the all-time best. There's no question about it. Brian Allison joins us every Monday morning at 11 with a look back at this week in music history. We've covered the 1970s for this week. We're going to dive into the 1980s when we return, including why it is that the song Footloose cannot be played at some weddings. Plus, one of my favorite pieces of rock and roll folklore ever will be discussed with Brian and I as we continue this week in music history here on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. It's 570 News Radio. Every Monday morning, just after the 11 a.m. news, we are joined by our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison, for a look back at this week in music history. Remember that Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. You'll get a full list of weekly stories for your enjoyment. We started our segment today with a little bit of Kenny Loggins. Everybody knew the song right away from the first note, I Know It. Of course, the title song to the movie Footloose. And it was on This Week in 1984, Brian Allison, that it was a number one for Kenny Loggins.
It sure did. What a monster hit that turned out to be for Kenny Loggins. So, yeah, this was obviously the theme song to the film of the same name, Footloose, which starred Kevin Bacon, came out in early 1984. And it hit the number one spot and spent 3 weeks there. And it also reached the top position in Australia and Canada. So pretty much a global hit. Where it didn't reach the top spot, it certainly was a top 10 hit around the globe. It kind of cemented Kenny Loggins as that go-to guy for movie themes because he had previously done the song I'm All Right, which was on the Caddyshack soundtrack. Then he came up with Footloose, of course. And then a year or so later, he would enjoy a even bigger hit with Danger Zone from the film Top Gun. So Kenny Loggins, yeah, he was kind of that guy that movie producers would go to and say, can we get a song for this movie, Kenny? You think you could write us a hit? And he was usually able to produce for it. So Footloose would be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song at the 1985 ceremony. Lost that category to Stevie Wonder, who had I Just Called to Say I Love You from the film soundtrack of The Woman in Red, which was also a big hit. The funny trivia about this is that I have it on pretty good authority from a bunch of sources that say when Kevin Bacon goes to a wedding, to this very day, somebody, his manager or maybe himself has to go to the DJ and say, look, don't play Footloose. I'm not getting up and dancing. Take it off your playlist for this event. Because he said, his quote was, I don't wish to, quote, get up and dance my old steps like a trained monkey.
I mean, I think I can kind of understand that. He's done it how many times, right?
But how cool would it be to be at a wedding and Kevin Bacon's there and they play Footloose and he comes out dancing?
Well, sure. That would be great because you are at that wedding, but then there are 100 other yous with all the weddings that Kevin Bacon gets invited to, and then he feels like a trained monkey.
I think probably in the years that followed Footloose, he was maybe a good sport about it and went out and did it, and then eventually just said, I'm not going to do this at every single wedding I go to. So, go to the DJ, probably hands him a few dollars and says, please don't play Footloose.
There you go. All right. This week in 1985, in fact, April the 1st, maybe we thought it was an April Fool's joke, but no, David Lee Roth was done with Van Halen.
A lot of people did think it was a joke. I remember when this happened, and it was April 1st when it kind of was announced, and people were like, there's no way. They just came off one of the biggest records of their lives with 1984. Why would he quit? But he had already put out his own solo song. He had recorded California Girls, the Beach Boys song, and that actually featured Carl Wilson from the Beach Boys in the background vocals. But no, he decided, I think I'm going to go this on my own. There was a lot of friction within the band, Van Halen, and particularly Eddie and him were not getting along particularly well. So he said, I'm going to try things on my own. So he was replaced by Sammy Hagar. Let the debate begin, because this is one of those debates in rock and roll that people still talk about today. Is it Van Halen? Is it Van Hagar? Which is better? Talk amongst yourselves. If you want to look at the stats, Van Halen sold more records with David Lee Roth. There's no doubt about it than with Sammy Hagar. Roth made 6 albums with Van Halen between 78 and 84, sold about 45 to 50 million copies worldwide combined, including 1984, which was the album that kind of made Van Halen. And then you've got Sammy Hagar coming in for 4 albums between 86 and 95, selling about 30 to 35 million copies worldwide, which is still pretty good. But several reached the top spot consecutively. So bottom line, Roth era, bigger total sales, maybe more cultural impact. Hagar era was extremely successful albums, but a little bit behind in record sales. I don't know. Which one do you prefer? Have you got a favorite?
I do. I was always more of a David Lee Roth guy. I just liked the showmanship that came with Van Halen, with David Lee Roth up front.
They didn't call him Diamond Dave for nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, he was a spectacular frontman. I kind of think about them as two very different bands, because to me, even the music changed with Sammy Hagar. There was more ballads, a little bit lighter, a little poppier, a little more radio friendly, where, Van Halen was a little more hardcore rock and roll. So I kind of think of them as two different bands, but both valid.
Okay, you're going to have to give me some help with this one, Brian. This week in 1986, Johann Hans Holzel. I mean, I thought I knew music. Help me out here.
Johann Hans Holzel, yes, from Austria, better known as Falco.
Ah, there it is. Yeah. Rock Me Amadeus.
Rock Me Amadeus hit the number 1 on the U.S. singles charts on March 29th, 1986, and held that spot for 3 weeks. Also number 1 in the UK. And Falco became the first German-speaking artist to achieve a number 1 hit on the U.S. charts. He had previously had success with a song called Der Kommissar, which was released in 1981 in Europe. But the song didn't chart in the USA, but then it was re-recorded by another band, an English band called After the Fire, and hit in 1983 and peaked at number 5. So he did have some chart success prior to this, but not as big and not in German. But he was the first to hit the U.S. number 1 spot with a German song. 2 years before, this takes us back to our previous story with Van Halen. In 1984, another German song reached the number 1 spot on the U.S. chart, but nearly reached the number 1 spot on the U.S. chart, but was held off by Van Halen's Jump. Do you remember what that song was?
I've got it.
German-speaking song, 86.
Yeah, I got to think it was 99 Luftballons.
You are correct.
Yeah.
So give that man a prize.
There you go.
So it made it all the way to number 2, but couldn't reach the number 1 spot because Van Halen was perched there with Jump. So
damn you, David Lee Roth. Damn you.
He denied Nana.
That's right. Okay. And finally, one of my absolute favorite pieces of rock and roll folklore, or is it? This week in 2007, Keith Richards did what?
Well, we don't know if this actually happened. This is one of those stories that's been circulating for decades, and nobody's really sure if it actually happened. So if we go back to April 3rd, 2007, we have Jane Ross, who was Keith Richards' manager, and she was being interviewed by MTV News. The story that had previously come out was that Keith was interviewed by Mark Beaumont of the New Musical Express, and he was talking about his father's death. And he said that his father had been cremated, and that after he was cremated, he, quote, I couldn't resist grinding him up with a little bit of blow.
Oh, my gosh.
So the story was that he'd taken some of his late father's ashes and snorted them with some cocaine. Jane Rose, of course, wanted to temper that story, got on MTV News and said that he was just speaking in jest, that he never really did that and can't believe anybody would actually take it seriously. But Mark Beaumont, the interviewer, said he didn't feel like Keith Richards was joking when he was speaking to him about this incident. He said in a BBC interview, he seemed to be quite honest about it. There were too many details for him to be making it up. So it's still very unclear if this story actually happened or if it became an urban legend. But I mean, it's still a great story, no matter if it's true or not.
Well, and what makes an urban legend like this so compelling is that I think we could all see, potentially, Keith Richards actually doing this.
Well, if there was anybody that this story was going to stick to, I think Keith Richards would be one of those guys in rock and roll, where people are just looking for a wild and crazy story of something that he might do because he had such a reputation. But yeah, the story's got legs and it's still circulating. He'll get asked every so often in an interview, somebody will say to him, did you actually do that with your father's ashes, or was that all a story? And usually he just sort of laughs and walks away. So he's never really come out and said yes or no. So we're not sure.
We're not sure, but the mystery, I like to think that he did it just because it's a pretty cool piece of rock and roll folklore.
It's a great story.
It really is. As are all the stories you bring us every week, Brian. Thank you again for being here.
As always, Mike, I'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now.
Brian Allison is a musicologist who joins us every Monday morning at 11 o'clock for This Week in Music History. Don't forget, Facebook page, same name, This Week in Music History. You will get the full list of weekly stories and take your own little trip back down a musical memory lane. This Week in Music History on Facebook and right here on the show every Monday morning, just after the 11 a.m. news. We always follow up This Week in Music History with Drewe's Views. Our good friend David Drewe, former Federal Conservative Party staffer, joins us to share his unique perspective on all things politic, including the NDP's brand new leader. And let's talk about the Sunshine List, shall we? It's all coming up. Drewe's Views next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? I haven't seen hide nor shaggy head of that boy in 4 years. But you'd know him if you met him. Played harmonica like the cat lost his balls. Yep, Crazy Dave. Had a toothy smile as big as my hand. Always chewed on a toothpick or a long blade of grass, drank from the bottle, rolled the worst cigarettes, was impervious to insect bites. It's one of the best damn tree-planting highballers east of Prince George.
That is our good friend, David Drewe, who joins us Monday mornings just after the 11:30 news to share with us his views, Drewe's views, don't you know? David owns Negotiating Change.
I love it when you talk to me in that bedroom voice, Mike.
You're welcome. It's just for you today, pal. Just for you. Turn up the volume on your headphones, buddy. It gets even better.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. David owns Negotiating
Extra
Change.
rumble.
Government relations and stakeholder engagement strategies. He tells me, by way of his notes today, that he found something interesting in the Sunshine List. Okay. My curiosity is piqued, but let's begin with kind of how the weekend ended, if you will, federally, politically wise, and that is Avi Lewis. Welcome to the sinking ship that is the federal NDP.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is kind of meta to this conversation. I haven't been paying as much attention to the NDP as I might have to a Liberal or a Conservative race, just for obvious reasons. So it really caught me off guard when it's the early afternoon and companies coming over to our house and they've already announced that he's won on the first ballot. The timing of that just blew my mind. It's like, why are you not pushing the drama to the dinner hour? Or why didn't you announce it Saturday night so you could have had the morning news shows in your favor? So the timing was just absolutely bizarre to me, especially since the balloting had been closed for long enough. If they'd gone to 6 ballots, which I think was theoretically impossible with 5 candidates, but if they'd gone to 6 ballots, it would have been a case of how do we choose to announce it? There was no need to do retabulation or anything like that. So bad flight schedules out of Winnipeg on a Sunday. I don't know why the timing was what it was, but it was a missed opportunity. So now to the meat of the conversation. I think Avi Lewis is a vegetarian.
Excuse me?
I was trying to make a joke to the meat of the conversation. I heard most of Avi Lewis's acceptance speech, and I can sort of see something there now. He is the most 21st century media candidate we've had. He is made for speaking off the cuff to cameras. He is made for pumping up crowds. He is made to be clippable. He has all the tricks a modern politician needs in his arsenal. His ideas are still kind of crazy to me, but there's also a kind of romance to them. And if you were listening to him speech, if you leave out the solutions part, all the problems, it could have been Pierre Poilievre describing the problems about you go to the grocery store, and like he was hitting affordability like I don't hear anybody else except Pierre Poilievre hit it, and he hit it very, very well. Very, very well. Like I say, it's a party that's very deeply in debt. It has a large sedan of a caucus, not even a minivan needed anymore. They have a lot of troubles ahead of them, but I think he is the guy for the moment, whether he pulls it off or not. He's high risk, high reward for sure. But he is the one who, with no seat in Parliament, will still be able to capture attention from our media, from Canadians, from the internet, because he speaks that language quite naturally. He's the oldest digital native we know.
Shouldn't we be a little bit concerned, though, that he's not running for a seat?
Well, where would he run? I think what the neat thing to me was, among the three major candidates, actually, it's kind of neat too, because Rob Ashton came in fourth, which I did not expect. I really thought he was going to be in third because he had the reputed Labour support, but he came behind Tennille Johnson, I think her name was, the municipal politician. Interesting there. But the three major candidates before the votes came in, you had basically three very different visions for the NDP coming in. You had Heather McPherson saying, our tent is not big enough. We need to grow it. And you had Rob Ashton saying, no, the problem is this new tent. We need to go back to using the old tent we had because everybody was happy in that old tent and we were there. And then you had Avi Lewis saying, no, we're going to build a brand new tent. And managed to sign up the members and get the money. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Heather McPherson, an Edmonton NDP MP, deals with Avi Lewis's anti-oil sands rhetoric. We have two NDP premiers who have basically said, you're not welcome near us anymore. The first thing that Naheed Nenshi did was say, and let's remember, in Alberta, you're not necessarily a federal New Democrat if you're a provincial New Democrat. Like, there's this distancing going on. So there's a good reason why the first thing he did after he won was call up everybody who ran against him and everybody who was important at all on stage to show unity.
I'm so intrigued by so many aspects of this, but I'll leave it for now because there's more to get to.
Yeah, that's just it. He's getting far more attention already than he deserves, and so he's winning.
Good point. Okay, why are the Liberals against truth, and why are you with them in being against truth? You have me confused and confounded on this one, Mr. Drewe.
Yeah, it's not surprising that the Liberals are against truth, but David Drewe? Come on here.
Yeah, you're all about truth.
In this case, though, there's this dude named Federico Sanchez who got a petition to Parliament demanding they propose legislation that would help correct the record when members of Parliament stray from the truth intentionally or simply because they are ill-informed. And the Liberals are dismissing it. And so would I. The whole point of the House of Commons is that members are able to get up and speak freely and say outrageous things. And there's a point to it, though. That is where the leader of the opposition can point at a minister of the government and say, you are corrupt, and not get sued for it. It allows for this exchange of integrity, and every now and then you have the government getting up and saying, I dare you to say that outside this House. And I think the last time the Liberals did that, Pierre Poilievre promptly put down his pen, took off his headset, walked outside, and started repeating everything he just said in the House. But if a member of Parliament can't get sued for slandering someone inside the House, we are not going to edit their thoughts for the record. It's like when the last speaker had a Ukrainian Nazi war criminal recognized in the House of Commons. And afterwards, I forget which Liberal it was who proposed that they edit Hansard to take that out. It's like, no, that happened. This is a record of what happened in the House of Commons. So yeah, the idea of editing or correcting or la-di-da, no, that's the point of debate in the House of Commons. We do not litigate there. So,
but wouldn't it at least, because you talked about how the system is designed so that you can say outrageous things, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't? Like, wouldn't this be a step towards decorum?
You know, in theory it would be, but who are we going to set up to decide on decorum?
Right.
And et cetera. And then who appoints them? And then. So it's like, yeah, in theory, wouldn't it be all nice if we could just eat sugar treats all day and be healthy? Yeah, it would be nice in theory. Communism works in theory, Mike.
I hear you. Okay. You call it the snore shine list. I can't say as I summarily disagree with that, but a buddy of yours found something interesting within said list. Do tell.
Well, actually, yeah, he pulled it from CTV News. I'm looking at it now. So, what do you think the pay difference between a large city mayor and a bus driver would be?
Oh, that's a very good question.
And like, I'm not going to make you answer. I'm just going to let you react to this and let you think about if this was the delta you were expecting.
I would say in the range of $40,000 to $60,000
difference.
Yeah.
Wow, you're pretty good. Because in Ottawa, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe earned $214, we'll round it off to $1,000. There was a bus driver on the list who earned $177,000 and another who earned $173,000.
Come on. Which would make them higher paid, if I'm not mistaken, than the mayor of Kitchener. I know we're comparing a little bit of apples to tangerines there.
That's just it. You know, you sort of like, we spend all this time thinking about, okay, and second of all, let's just remember $100,000 is the stupidest number to be using 40 years after this thing came along.
Couldn't agree more.
But I really would have expected a bigger delta between the bus driver and the mayor just because of the range of responsibilities. It's like, yeah, the bus driver can kill people. You know, in Ottawa, the mayor can kill people just by underfunding the buses. Like, there's this whole range of responsibilities and diversities and what are the skills required to bring to the job, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the only thing Mark Sutcliffe doesn't have going for him that I'm willing to bet these bus drivers do is years of seniority. I'm pretty sure these were not entry-level bus drivers.
Of course. But imagine making almost $180K to drive the bus.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a bad living.
Yeah, and I'm not criticizing these bus drivers or saying that they are overpaid in any way. I might be suggesting that Mark Sutcliffe is a bit underpaid. I think I am. For a city that size to be playing rubbing elbows with it's kind of like the mayor of Toronto. Forget about the size. You got to deal with Queen's Park in a way that no other city does. Mark Sutcliffe has to deal with the federal government in a way that no other city does. So, yeah, I kind of think that mayor's underpaid. It's not about the bus drivers.
Well, Mark Sutcliffe comes from the radio industry. He probably thinks he's wealthy as beyond his wildest imagination right now.
I would be, if there was any politician whose receipts I would be checking, it would be Mark Sutcliffe, because journalists who went into politics have a bad history with the books and receipts.
David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, to share his views on Drewe's Views. Why should we get rid of school boards? And not one expert or opposition MP came up with this amazing idea. We'll talk about it as we continue Drewe's Views this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio. Monday mornings at 11:30, we are joined in studio by David Drewe, former Conservative Party staffer, now works as a communicator professionally, not just here on the radio, negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies. David's got you covered. Let's talk about the 1.7 million reasons, David Drewe, that you have found to get rid of school boards. Do tell.
Well, you remember a few weeks back we were talking about that Catholic school trustee who'd just been reinstated by the courts?
Yeah, and got a $20,000 settlement.
Well, yeah, apparently $20,000 wasn't enough.
I heard that, yeah.
$1.7 million she is suing the board for now. If she wins, who pays?
We do.
If all the costs coming along the way, who's paying to defend the school board?
We have picked up every tab along the way. Every one of them.
And I'm kind of mad at this trustee because, like, you won. maybe $20,000 wasn't enough, but now you're just going to victimize the kids again by taking more money out of the school's pockets? At some point, can't you be the bigger person and just say, for the good of the kids, I'm going to take the $20,000 and rub it in these jerks' faces and let them know exactly what a waste of time they have put on this, and I am going to scream this from the rooftops. But if I am suing them for $1.7 million, I kind of lose my high ground to talk about moral crusades and waste in the system. And that's why I'm just so, once again, if we had a professional bureaucrat in there, a civil servant, as opposed to an elected official whose ego apparently means a lot, would we be having all these lawsuits?
It's a very good question, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't think along similar lines. It's like, come on, when is enough enough? 1.7 million, but who am I, David Drewe, to judge another's anxiety, loss of sleep, damage to reputation, etc.?
If it wasn't for the fact that, again, taxpayers are funding both sides of this, I'd be good on you, because she was absolutely wronged. And there's a huge part of me who's like, good on you, sister. But it's not like the individuals who wronged her are going to be penalized in any way by this. And we saw from the last round of public school board elections that you can get reelected even if you cost the board significant amounts of money with an ego trip. So I'm frustrated with this whole darn thing. And I want to be on her side because she was initially in the right. But at some point, you were elected to represent the kids. Can you please, just suck this one up for the team?
That's a great point.
Because you're in the right, but $1.7 million, I don't even care about the number of 1.7 million so much as the legal action and all the fees and all the this and that and the distraction.
And as you said, you're not hurting the other trustees at all. It's not their money.
Yeah.
There are two of our regular listeners that I know for certain intend on putting their name forward as school board trustees. I'm not sure, public or Catholic, doesn't really matter. And they seem like good people to me. I would wish for them to have the opportunity. So whether we talk about eliminating boards of trustees or not, I just really hope that this is another reminder to folks that we need to clean those houses out in October.
It's a huge amount of money. It's a huge investment in our future that we are entrusting these people with, and our voter turnout is dismal. And honestly, to me, that's what the biggest argument for getting rid of it is.
I hear you.
We don't want it, obviously. 85% of people do not care about school board trustees and do not value them.
I hope you care about your $1.7 million.
Well, I hope someone does.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk about the Liberal government's bill to target deep fakes, foreign interference, electoral reform, or election law reforms. I'm all for some reforms here, David. What's your concern here with Bill C-25?
It's not even the bill so much. It's a CB story about it where they manage to describe the bill in great detail. They managed to interview the relevant minister, Steve McKinnon, but they don't talk to any outside experts. There's no opposition reaction. It's not even a press release. This is the biggest puff piece of stories I have seen ever. And I remember when Pierre Poilievre, as cabinet minister, was proposing some changes to an election law. And yeah, some of those changes are controversial, but so are some of these ones right here with what they're talking about. And there was no way he would have ever had the CBC giving him unchallenged space to make his case like this. That's what I'm most amazed about. The CBC on elections just gave the government unchallenged everything. And that's the first introduction to the issue most voters are going to have. So if you read the CBC piece, you will not have any idea that there's a downside to any of these ideas at all. And at least, I'm not saying this bill's even necessarily a bad thing. But when you're talking about these fundamental changes, an educated conversation might not be a bad thing. And if our national broadcaster is not going to engage in that, I don't know who will. So I'm angry again, Mike.
Well, I don't blame you in this regard because it is really journalism 101 to get some perspective from the other side of the story, which there almost always is.
And I'm not going to name names of the journalist, but it is a senior reporter. This is not some staffer or first assignment under-resourced told to go out and get the story. This is somebody who has a license to chase things. And it also went through an editorial process. And nobody at the CBC sort of said, interesting that there's no perspective other than the government's on this. Fair Vote Canada, they had nothing to say apparently. Like, there's no shortage of experts on the electoral system who can put forward even, they could have found some experts who were in favor of it. But it was just Steve McKinnon and puffery. And I don't blame Steve McKinnon. God bless him for getting away with it. But I do blame the CBC. This is a press release written by the department with better verbiage. This is not journalism.
It's a good reminder to...
This is like people say Joe Rogan is bad because he doesn't challenge his guests. Anybody who has a problem with Joe Rogan should have a serious problem with this article.
Read critically, friends. That is the message here. David, as always, enjoy the conversations. We're not going to see you next Monday. We'll see you 2 Mondays from now.
Okay. I hope
I'm
your
not gonna
voice
be
is
here
still
next
like
Monday.
this in 2 weeks.
I'll make it
sexy, baby.
I'll make it that way just for you. David Drewe joins us Monday mornings, 11:30 for Drewe's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio.
Tell me if I'm coming on too strong. This heart of mine has been hurt before. This time I wanna be sure. I've been waiting for a girl like you to come into my life. I've been waiting for a girl like you, and a love that will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive.
It is Foreigner and Waiting for a Girl Like You on this All Request Friday, Power Ballads edition. Fridays also mean our Friday 4 Roundtable. With us today, David Marskell, who's the CEO of The Museum in downtown Kitchener. David Drewe, the owner, Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies, and Yvonne Fernandez is here as well, the president of the Dune Pioneer Park Community Association. David Marskell, I'll start with you on this one. What a week it's been as we learn more about that awful plane crash at LaGuardia Airport in New York, featuring an Air Canada jet. 2 Air Canada pilots killed in that collision with a fire truck on the runway. Aside from everything we've learned about it, something else we learned, I guess, is that the CEO of Air Canada is not very strong when it comes to Canada's other official language, that being French. Is it right for all of the ire to be directed at the Air Canada CEO for his inability to express condolences in French?
Well, first and foremost, it was truly tragic, and I just feel so badly for all involved, the people that lost people and their families, and people who were injured and so on. It was just a terrible, terrible accident, and it was a huge mistake on his part that he couldn't or wouldn't speak in both languages. I mean, even his staff or somebody suggesting, let's get you in front of a camera and we'll video something and we'll keep going until you get the French proper, no matter how short it is. And I feel it wasn't politically motivated to begin with. I don't think people were laying in wait. I think it really truly hurt and offended people, and I think that's what makes this most offensive. It's a slap in the face to the pilots' families, to Quebec, and on and on. And if it was an isolated incident, that would be one thing. But his history is he said he was going to take lessons, and he's just continues not to do that. And I think that's the biggest reason why the heat should stay on him to step down.
Yeah, I think your point about, putting him on camera and with the staff, as many takes as are required to get the proper French to come out, however broken it may be. It's not the Air Canada CEO himself that is responsible here. There's an entire team, but gosh, you wish somebody would have stepped up with that. And maybe David Drewe, as a communications expert yourself, you might have been able to step in and save the man from himself.
Well, I guess my question is, why did he feel the need to do a video message? He could have issued a statement that just said whatever in both official languages, the exact same words. There was no need for him to use video. So why put himself in that position? If I was staffing him, as soon as it became apparent that he was going to be so bad in French that he really shouldn't be speaking it, I'd pull the video and just go with straight text. There was, and by the fact that he did not do that, I think that's half of it. It's not that he's unable to. It's that he was unable to and he did it anyway. But he did it wrong rather than doing it officially. Like, that is the flag in the face. And there's a lot of stuff about bilingualism that people get upset about that I just lift my nose at, but this is not one of those things. There's reason to be angry here. I
wonder if putting him on camera is in any way connected to the recent fast food CEO video craze, if you will, where one CEO was mocked and others jumped on board. Maybe putting the CEO and putting that human face and doing it video-wise as opposed to statement-wise is the new trend. I don't know. I think David Drewe has lost audio. Yvonne, I'll swing it over to you.
Yeah, no, I think it was an emotional response to a very tragic situation. And his staff should have been the ones who directed him in how to do this. Maybe he overrode them and said, no, I want to put like a human face behind this tragedy. I want to make sure that people see how emotionally distraught I am. But why not have had a translator standing behind him, beside him, like we've seen in so many other videos?
That would have been just as bad.
Would it?
That would have been just as bad. That would have exposed exactly what David Marskell was talking about. He committed to learning.
Yes,
and
he did.
If he'd have had a translator there, it would have been just as much an exposure of the fact that that promise meant nothing.
But
and it was a controversial thing back then.
But wouldn't it have at least looked like he made an effort, like at least that he wanted the message to be very clear to the people who had lost family members and the injured people that, I apologize, my French is not where I want it to be. Therefore, I have so-and-so standing here who's going to translate every word I say.
My French is not what it's legally required to be. It's a crown corporation. He's supposed to be able to function with all his staff in both official languages, and he just exposed that he cannot speak French with any of his staff or stakeholders.
Okay, true enough. I just don't think I don't think it's worth firing somebody at that level. The cost would be horrendous. And I stand corrected if I'm saying that the government still subsidizes Air Canada in any way at all. That's taxpayer dollars going out the door. Anyways, that's my thoughts. I just think that he reacted and overrode maybe some wisdom from his staff.
There's no question that what we're dealing with here is one small part of what was just an incredible situation. Go ahead, David Drewe.
To make an analogy, that plane crash was not an event. It was the ending of several different series of events that culminated in the crash and the accident. Same with this guy's statement. It's not the statement that's the issue. It's all the series of events that led up to him standing up there saying merci, bonjour, and that's all the French he could muster for a tragedy. It's all of the things behind it that went on. If this is the judgment that is being exhibited, where else is that judgment being exhibited?
Within Air Canada. And of course, that brings us to the ultimate tragedy that's involved in all of this, and the human error that existed on the part of that air traffic controller. I can't imagine what that person is living with now for the rest of their days.
Do we know it was human error?
Well, I mean,
it's telling
the recording
truck
says I messed up, right? The recording says I messed up. Was there where I know? I want to know where the fire truck driver was in. Like, what was he not hearing? Stop! 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 I think
was he on the same radio frequency? I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's that remains to be seen.
Yeah,
that remains.
And I suppose that will all come out in the investigation that is underway, and we know that, you know, even the legal community has weighed in on this as to what might be coming by way of legal action following what just an incredible tragedy. And the fact that this air traffic controller had to stay on shift because there was nobody there to take his place. He's still directing air traffic on tarmacs, getting planes to gates, etc., even in the aftermath of this crash, because there's nobody else there.
And as a guy who worked in the newsroom, Mike, you know that when one mistake happens in your life, they tend to snowball and they tend to get worse. The fact that this guy finished his shift without further incident is testament to him.
I would agree with that completely. It's not an easy thing to overcome, for sure. David Drewe, Yvonne Fernandez, and David Marskell with us on the Friday 4 Roundtable this morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, Bill C-9, Combating Hate in Canada, has passed in Parliament, now off to the Senate. Would you have voted for it? We'll talk about it with our Friday 4 Roundtable guests as we continue the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio. Scorpion and Still Loving You, by request from Kyle on this All Request Friday Power Ballads edition. Our Friday 4 Roundtable with us today, David Drewe, Yvonne Fernandez, and David Marskell. One more topic for us to tackle, and it's been a contentious one. It's been a difficult one for MPs. There's been a lot of conversation about this. Opposition parties not supportive of the Liberal government's Combating Hate Act, Bill C-9. But the Liberals, with the support of the Bloc, got it through Parliament, and now off it goes to the Senate. David Drewe, I'll start with you on this one. The Combating Hate Act, as it stood when it was passed, is it something that you could have voted for?
I'm not quite sure. I like this one really does tear me up a little bit, because I agree with the principles of it, but some of the criticism, particularly from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, about it silencing protests, I would really want to be taking a finer look at it than I've been able to from just media coverage. I would really want to be sitting down at the committee and listening to what the witnesses had to say about it, because this is a fine line. I disagree with the conservative hyperbole about how quickly and bad it's going to get. But generally, politics is all about hyperbole. And if something's bad, it's never kind of bad. It's always the worst in the world. So I do have concerns about it. If I was there and I had to vote for it, I would be better informed than I am right now, let's say.
Okay, what parts of it that you have heard about give you pause?
I am not exactly sure how it would potentially silence protest. I am like, and that's just it. I need to have better real life examples of where citing the Old Testament would or would not get me into trouble. I want to know where in public I would not be able to read the Quran. I would want to know what the real world implications of this are and how it will be executed before the words on paper in principle. Like, that's what I'm struggling with is, so where is the line with this new law? It used to be there was an exemption if in good faith you were quoting religious text. So now, if you were quoting in bad faith before, you were still in trouble. So good faith religious quoting is now potentially a felony?
Well,
that's I need to know more about where the lines are.
And who determines whether it's in good faith or bad faith? That's where we really get stuck.
20 years from now, what will the Supreme Court be saying about it? The people who say that we have a charter right to bike lanes, what are they going to be saying about good faith and bad faith in this case?
Yvonne, as David said, it's something that by its name, the Combating Hate Bill, is something I think we can all easily get behind. As usual, as they say, the devil is in the details here.
I agree with David Drewe. I kept looking and trying to see if I could find more details that would help me understand, because anything can be subjective. So if I'm standing protesting, as I will be on Sunday, about a particular issue, can that be misconstrued about as a hate crime to particular people who have made a decision? Or if I completely vehemently disagree with a member of parliament and I'm standing outside of their office and I'm spewing whatever, is that considered hate? So I think it's a really fine line between freedom of expression and freedom of speech and hate. And when we get emotional, we do say things that, especially if we're passionate about something, I think sometimes we don't govern ourselves as well as we should. But on the other side, should we not be able to say publicly that we disagree vehemently with something? I'm feeling a little unsure about where I would have put my vote on this, very similar to what David Drewe was saying. I would really want some real life examples of where this has played out and how we should be dealing with it. Absolutely don't want to see people thinking they can spray a synagogue or, pull off somebody's hijab in public. Those are really horrible situations.
That are already illegal.
That are
already illegal.
Illegal, exactly.
So you know what I mean? Like, all of that stuff was already covered. So what's the new ground?
Yeah, good. That's a good point.
David Marskell, your thoughts?
I mean, where I do agree with everybody is it would have been a very tough vote to hold your nose and vote upon it. I mean, where I went with this is that I don't think Carney would have done this in terms of the Quebec exemption had he had a majority government. He wouldn't have done that. He would have just gone forward with the bill that he thought was best. The Conservatives and the NDP, if they agreed with the anti-hate bill, they could have offered their own trade-offs, and maybe they suggested that for support. But we won't know that. But while I like minority governments, I think this is an example of why majority governments are better. I think the two things would have been separated had it been a majority government without the Quebec exemption.
I find that interesting. It's like you read my mind, David Marskell. David Drewe, these are the mechanics of a minority parliament right now, right? So the Liberals court enough favor with the Bloc to get some legislation passed.
And I am not saying that this is it, but there have been cases where governments in the past have included language on bills as a sop to the opposition that were quite incendiary to the public and in the end meant nothing at all. I have no idea. I thought Dave Marskell's thought there was really interesting too. Would this have happened with a majority government? The other question is, how else would the bill have been different if they didn't feel the need to have to negotiate with anybody else?
Right.
And I love how you said you love minority parliaments, but this is a case where, and I've just been sitting there for the past year going, how can we keep the transparency of the minority government, but get the speed of the majority government? That's what I've been trying to figure out for the past year, and I don't know how.
How long did Bill Davis do it? 43 years or something? Didn't he have an incredible length of time as a minority government?
He had majorities and minorities.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
So my question, and pardon my ignorance, gentlemen, is this the reason they courted the Quebecois, the Bloc Quebec, because the Quebec is talking about not allowing religious symbols? Is that how this fits together?
To get their
Is
vote,
that why?
they couldn't have passed the bill without somebody supporting them, another parties supporting them.
Okay.
We also should remember, though, that this agreement was hatched a couple months ago when the Conservatives still looked at the idea of cooperating the Liberals as toxic, whereas now it might have been a different result just because they're just trying to avoid an election.
And people say politics is boring. This is why minority parliaments are so much fun. David Marskell, quickly, thoughts on the Blue Jays season starting tonight? I'm sure you're invested.
You know, what I learned last year is very quickly is that we have to win the series. We have to win the series against the Yankees, Boston, Seattle, so that when we get to the playoffs, we have home field advantage and the crowd, the wonderful crowd.
I love it. Big night for the Blue Jays. Their 50th season kicks off. My thanks to David Marskell, CEO of the museum in downtown Kitchener, David Drewe, owner negotiating change, and Yvonne Fernandez, president of the Dune Pioneer Park Community Association. Thank you for your time and thoughts on the show today. Really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Go Rangers, go Blue Jays. An update from the 570 News Center is on the way. And then open phone lines. We close the show every week the same way with open phone lines for Free Phones Friday. Plus, at 12:30, we're giving away 2 pair of Kitchener Rangers tickets. You'll have to answer some Rangers trivia questions. They won't be the easiest questions, but they won't be the hardest either. And we'll send you to the game tonight as well. It's all coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
And I'd give up forever to touch you, 'cause I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't wanna go home right now. And all I could taste is this moment, and all I can breathe is your light. And sooner or later it's over. I just don't wanna miss you tonight. And I don't want the world to see me.
It is the Goo Goo Dolls and Iris by request from Clinton on this All Request Friday Power Ballads edition as we cleanse our palates from last week's disco theme and play some power ballads on the show today. Thanks again to Heather for the suggestion that we try power ballads following our disco theme last week. We are into our final hour together of the day of the week. This is Free Phones Friday. The next, 54 minutes are all for you with open phone lines. Couple of things by way of housekeeping. One of those things is that we will interrupt, however temporarily, this week's edition of Free Phones Friday in an attempt to send you to the Kitchener Rangers game tonight. They open the playoffs. They're taking on the Saginaw Spirit, and we want to put your bum in a seat. So we have 2 pairs of tickets to give away, and we're going to do that at 12:30. Now, Frank sent me an email to Mike at 570news.com and says, "This is unfair, Mike. You indicated the questions regarding the free tickets for tonight's game will require significant knowledge about the team." No, I didn't, Frank. I just said, in the past, we have done really easy Ranger trivia. Like I would ask questions like, in what arena do the Rangers play? What color are the Rangers jerseys, etc. It's not going to be that easy. I'm not going to ask you who had the most assists for the Kitchener Rangers in 1984, I promise. It's not going to be that bad. But I would like to award the tickets to some fans who have a passing knowledge of the league, of the team, and are going to be there in full throat to cheer on the Kitchener Rangers tonight. So that's housekeeping point number one. Housekeeping point number two, as we get into Free Phones Friday, I'm afraid that, much like yesterday, only some of our phone lines are free. It's not that you have to pay, but if you've been trying to dial star 570 and you can't get through and you're wondering, what the heck, is Farwell that popular? Absolutely not. Never have been, never will be. Wouldn't mind being, but am not. Star 570 is not working. There are people that are far smarter than I am trying to get it sorted out, but we're not going to have it sorted out before the end of the hour. So the numbers to use for Free Phones Friday and when we play Rangers Trivia at 12:30 for a chance to win tickets, 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. 3 lines in total available, 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Let's get down to business. Heather starts off Free Phones Friday. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Mike. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm number 25, and I'm the person that sent in the request for the power ballot.
Good job by you.
I just want to thank you so much. I've never heard my name mentioned so many times on the radio. And I do think that some of the requests that you got were a little bit questionable as to being a power ballot.
I would agree.
We didn't get any Aerosmith or Guns N' Roses, so I don't think we did anyway. But anyway, I just wanted to thank you so much, and I'll keep sending in my suggestions.
Please do. I love getting them.
Okay, and go Rangers, go Jays.
All right, Heather. Love to hear it. Go Rangers starting the playoffs tonight. Go Jays opening their 50th season in Major League Baseball tonight. And I would not disagree, Heather, that we have played fast and loose with the rules of power ballads today. In fact, I'm going to call you out again, Preston Paul. AC/DC Thunderstruck. How is that a ballad by any stretch of the imagination? Anyway, your request is our command, and sometimes in the telephone game that happens here, from the time you call in a request until the time it ends up on the air, there may be a misunderstanding also of what makes a power ballad a power ballad. But hey, we're having fun. And to Heather's point, she hasn't heard any Aerosmith or Guns N' Roses yet, Heather, yet. There is still time in this hour to play more power ballads by request on this All Request Friday. Grant is with us on Free Phones Friday. Hello, Grant.
Good day, Mr. Mike.
Good day, Mr. Grant.
I'm going to touch on 3 things.
All right.
How's your wife doing? Because
She's the best wife in the world.
I know she was going through some difficulty there a couple of years ago with her health. And
oh, my goodness. You're just all about the health of the Farwell family this week, aren't you?
Well, I like to make sure that she's doing a lot better.
She's doing a lot better. Thank you for asking.
Well, that's good. And that Liam Greentree 4th goal, wow, that was a pretty goal. And then Tim Cunningham has, let me think. Oh, yeah, you mentioned that the Kingston game, that will be an upset. Kingston
taking on Ottawa? He thinks Kingston's going to win?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, Grant, I missed all of the OHL action last night because I was at the KW Titans game. However, thank you for the update on how good Liam Greentree's goal was. The Windsor Spitfires shut out the Guelph Storm 4-0 last night. The North Bay Battalion shut out the Peterborough Petes last night 1-0. Flint beat up on the Owen Sound Attack 8-1. And Barrie beat Niagara 4-1 last night. Those were the 4 games that opened the OHL playoffs. Tonight, along with our Rangers on the ice against Saginaw, the Kingston Frontenacs will play the Ottawa 67s. And according to Grant, a commentator that he heard last night talking during the intermission of that Guelph Storm game suggests that the Frontenacs are going to upset the Ottawa 67s. That would be a big upset. I can see it trying to build the case for it, but that would be a massive upset. We'll see. Playoffs are fun. Playoffs will open for the Kitchener Rangers tonight, and you're going to get a chance to win tickets in about 20 minutes. Kyle is with us on Free Phones Friday. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Mike, it's sunny out. The birds are chirping. The weather's beautiful. And you know what? It's Jay's opening day today, baby. The Rangers are going into the second round, and I'm excited.
No,
I cannot believe.
Kyle,
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt because you're like all fired up. I love it. How can the Rangers be going into the second round when they haven't even started the first round?
Did I say the second round?
You did?
Well, I'm ahead of myself, my friend.
Okay.
They're going into the first round, and Jay's is opening day today. I'm excited. It's a beautiful day. It's sunny. It's not raining. This is springtime. This is the best time of the year for me, man. Look, there's no mud on the streets. There's no fluff. There's no snow coming down. I'm excited, and I'm excited because it's a Rangers weekend for me. I get to see tonight. I get to see on Sunday. I'm going to the rink twice. The Jays are playing tonight. I'll be watching that on my feed on Twitter. I'm excited, man. I am pumped. Like this is like a holiday to me. Like I don't need to go travel 7,000 kilometers away on the other side of the ocean to have fun. All I have to do is just drive 45 minutes down on Highway 86, get to the Rangers building, and I get to see all of you guys and hear you in the broadcast booth. Mike, I'm excited, buddy. I cannot wait. And you know what? Let's go Rangers! Let's go Jays! Come on! Woo! Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Kyle. I don't know if he's going to have a voice left by the time he gets to the Rangers game tonight. Kyle's already got his tickets. Your chance to win tickets is coming up just after 12:30. Remember, 2 of our phone lines are down. Do not try calling. Well, you can try, but you're not going to get through at star 570. So please remember to reach us on Free Phones Friday and to reach us for your chance to win those Rangers tickets. 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. It's an all-request Friday. Tickets just after 12:30. Free Phones Friday continues. We keep taking calls. And it's an all-request Friday on the show. We're doing power ballads today. And Donna, I'm glad we can play this request for Donna today because Donna is not only Farwell's Force member number 2, one of the early entries on our list of Farwell's Force members, but it just so happens that Donna is celebrating a birthday today. So happy birthday to you, Donna. And thank you for the power ballad request from what? Who? The Carpenters? That's right. The Carpenters' song from 1972, Goodbye to Love, essentially helped to define the power ballad genre. Tony Peluso, you will hear in this bit of Goodbye to Love, plays the guitar solo that introduced us to power ballads by request from Donna on this All Request Friday. The Carpenters and Goodbye to Love.
I'll go on as best I can. What lies in the future is a mystery to
That's a little bit of Heart and Alone on this All Request Friday. Power Ballads edition. Bob wanted to hear that one, and an excellent choice, my friend. An excellent choice. Yesterday, we started the show with a Hall & Oates song, the third best-selling music duo in history. And when I saw that little blurb that they were the third best, I thought, I wonder who the best are. And I had lots of questions about it through the day yesterday. Some of you didn't get to hear the answer. Simon and Garfunkel sold the most records as a duo, followed by the Carpenters. Yes, the Carpenters, then Hall & Oates. And one of my coworkers, who also missed the answer yesterday, was talking to me earlier today. He said, I would have added Heart, but they're not technically a duo. No, they're not, but they do a great job with that power ballad, Alone, and we play it for you on your All Request Friday. Let's get back to the phones here. Free Phones Friday. Terry is with us. Good afternoon, Terry.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. So Grant listens to a religious show instead of your show at parts of the day?
Well, even better. He listens to a religious show, and then he listens to this show. I think you should go the other way around, pal. Like, you should seek salvation after listening to this show.
That means you're number 2 behind Jesus. So
you know what? I'll take it. Hey, wait, does that like the Beatles were more popular than Jesus, right?
Well, it's so John Lennon said.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Well, you were just talking about being popular. I guess being number 2 to Jesus is pretty high up there.
It's not bad. Hey. Terry, I like how you think, man.
Hey, Mike, did you also say yesterday that Mike McKenzie should go to the Leafs?
Yes.
Grant had him fired 10 times this season.
Well, Grant comes from you think I'm angry. Grant, he gets fired up about his Kitchener Rangers, doesn't he?
Well, it's funny. Well, it's fun when they lose because when the game ends, when you have the call-in show, when they lose, Grant wants everybody fired. I think he had the UC Ahokas fired once too. And then you hung up on him and said, well, he's the reigning coach of the year. How can you fire him? But anyway, it's funny because Robbie English, when they lose, he blames the referees. Grant wants everybody fired. I'm glad you have Eddie on there because he's like the calming voice. He's like the voice of reason.
Terry, it's like you've never listened to another sports call-in show before. It's like that everywhere. You know this.
But it's so predictable. Every time they lose, that's what you get. Robbie English, always the referee's fault. Well, no, the other team just played better that night. That's so funny. I love that call-in show, Mike. It's actually better than the game at times. So I'll have to listen tonight to see what happens. But I think the Rangers are going to win, so I don't think there's going to be too much belly aching. But we'll see. Anyway, I hope they do well tonight. It'll be a good game. So anyway, Mike, have yourself a good weekend.
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the support for our Rangers Talk post-game show. Terry is all excited to tune in tonight. Maybe Terry will even call the post-game show tonight. We're always looking for new voices who might not want to blame the referees, the coach, or the general manager for the loss. But I can tell you this. First of all, as I just mentioned to Terry, it's like any other sports call-in show that you hear anywhere. Rangers Talk. I've been to other cities listening to their post-game shows as I leave the sporting event I was just at, and it's the same cast of characters, just different names in different cities cheering for different teams. And they'll complain about the coach, or they'll complain about the general manager, or they'll complain about the officials in the game. And that tends to just be the way that sports call-in shows go. So I have a running joke because I've been doing this post-game show now since 2008, if you can believe it. We started it during the 2008 Memorial Cup, and we have not stopped since. So for these past 18 seasons, I've been there taking calls after Rangers games, and I have long joked that everybody loves a loser. When the team is playing as well as the Rangers are playing this season, the post-game show sometimes gets a little lonely. Like, it's a good thing Josh Piercy is there to keep me company, because when the team wins, everybody's just so excited. They go home all happy, and they don't call my post-game show to complain about anything. So when they lose, I'm like, it's going to be a good night on the phones. People are going to be fired up. Problem for us is the Rangers didn't lose a whole lot. 6 games on home ice in regulation this year, I think, was the final number the Rangers finished at. Anyway, after every home game, Josh and I stay late to take your calls, win or lose, and we host Rangers Talk until the late hours of every evening following a Rangers home game. It's a home game tonight, for the Kitchener Rangers, which means we will be here for Rangers Talk after the game. And Josh and I will be on the air with your Harris Law pregame show at 6:30 before puck drops versus the Saginaw Spirit. Game 1 of the playoffs is coming tonight. If you would like to be there, I would like to award you tickets. I have 2 pairs to give away. In order to win the tickets, you must answer 2 Rangers-related trivia questions. They're not the easiest questions, but they're also not the hardest. So if you're enough of a Rangers fan to think you can answer the questions, why don't you give me a call and we'll start lining people up. You must have an email address. That's the only qualifier here, plus answering the questions, okay? If you have an email address and you'd like to go to the game tonight, give us a call right now, 519-570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. I'll ask you questions. You need to answer 2. 1 question right for each ticket won, okay? And you get 2 tickets to go see the game tonight. You got an email address. You're going to answer some Rangers trivia questions. We'll send you to the game versus the Saginaw Spirit. 2 tickets to tonight's game. 519-570-2545. 1-800-570-5715. Let's put your Rangers trivia to the test and award you tickets to tonight's game coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is Free Phones Friday on a playoff game day, baby. 570 News Radio.